All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you are new. Thank you so much for being here with me today and joining me today. Boss almost wrecked my setup here. He jumped on my lap at the last second. Boss is very excited today. I'll tell you why in just a moment. But yes, I want to give you guys a big thank you just for being here, for watching the stream. It's always exciting with these Sunday streams because you never know. You never know what's going to go down. But I do have some topics for you today. I do. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to let you know what these topics are in just a moment. I want to first open up this stream by giving a big thank you and a big shout out to the top 4 donors of the channel. I have it here this week. So this is going to be something that updates every Sunday. The top 4 donors of the previous week will be there. And so I want to give a special thank you and shout out to Corey, the Legend Landiga, Michael Werneth, Exley 3000, and Hellbound 1981. I'm not sure if those guys are here today with us. I saw Michael was here. But yes, thank you guys so much for continually supporting the channel. We are fan funded here. I do rely on fan funding to keep this thing going and growing. So yes, big shout out to you guys for the support. It means a lot, not just for me, but for the community as well. So if you see these guys in the chat, give them a big thank you. But let me tell you some of the topics that we are going to discuss today, guys. A new exclusive partnership. Now, when I say new, I don't know that it's that new because we're talking about Stellar Blade, but something of significance has occurred between PlayStation, Sony Interactive, and the studio Shift Up, who actually is developing Stellar Blade. And I think this is quite significant because of where it might lead with this studio and this game. And it also reaffirms once again that Sony is aggressively pursuing more partnerships, closer partnerships, I guess you could say. So we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about how the PlayStation Portal has seemingly done the impossible. Guys, we are at a point now where the PlayStation Portal, now I don't know I doubt it's going to stay this way. It would be a real problem, I think, if it stayed this way. But we are at a point where the PlayStation Portal has actually outsold the Xbox consoles, at least in Spain, by a wide margin. Not even slightly, by a wide margin. We are at a point where a PlayStation accessory is, I don't know how it's doing this. Again, it could just be because it's at launch, but Rhintology is strong in Spain. Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Look, obviously we'll focus on the fact that it's somehow outselling the Xbox console, but I mainly want to focus on the fact that it seems to be doing well. That's the thing. I know that there are people that are saying it's just scalpers buying it. That doesn't make any sense. I think people need to realize that the same thing happened with the PS5. Like when scalpers were buying the PS5 to resell them, did we all come together and say there's clearly no demand for the PS5 because it's just scalpers? No, when you see people scalping products like this, it's because there actually is significant demand. Now, granted, Sony very likely produced a small amount. They very likely produced a small amount of portals, or at least not nearly as much as they. I don't know, as people were actually going to buy. I think that's kind of clear. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about Silent Hill 2 Remake as well. So these are the 3 main topics of the show. But before I dive into any of these topics, I do just want to, again, thank you guys for watching the stream, watching the content, whether you're here live, whether you're watching later. Really appreciate it. Do me a favor, hit that like button. We're currently sitting at 84 likes. I would really appreciate it if we could get that up to 100 likes. I think we could definitely do that with almost 350 people here. And then there are 3 ways you can support me directly. Number 1, consider becoming a channel member. We are going to be doing another members lounge after this stream. We're going to be actually playing a game, if all goes according to plan. I'm going to be doing some gameplay It should be a good time. So if you are a member, look forward to that members lounge. But yes, if you become a channel member, you not only support me directly, you gain access to the members lounge, you gain access to a couple of other perks as well. I have other stuff that I'm thinking about that, I'll be sure to let you guys know about later down the line. If you are already a channel member, even if you were gifted a channel membership, you can gift memberships yourself. It's a big thing we do here on the channel. Again, it's a great way to support me directly, but also a great way to support the community as well and get other people involved and help grow the community. So consider doing that. And then finally, last but not least, you can consider donating a super chat. You can ask a question, make a statement, give an opinion, everything in between. I really appreciate everybody who shows any type of direct support. If it wasn't for you guys, I simply wouldn't be able to do this. So big shout out to everybody who does that. And I also do want to let you know that I have some new cat treats here. They are catnip infused. Okay, so Boss loves these treats. What we'll do today, maybe we can make it a regular thing. I'm sure Boss would love it. So yeah, he's coming over here excited. Sorry, I didn't mean to tease you. Every time we hit a membership goal, so every 25 members we hit, I'll give Boss 5 or 6 treats for him to enjoy. And yeah, I know you guys love Boss, so we'll just test that out today, see how it goes. But we are going to dive into the first topic here today, which is this new exclusive partnership that has officially been announced by Sony. Okay, so the first report I'm actually going to read to you is a little bit older. This was reported on July 3rd, 2023, and it comes from WCCF Tech. Sony is reportedly looking to partner with Korean studios, starting with Pearl Abyss for Crimson Desert. Now, there's a reason why I want to go over this with you. South Korean business website MTN reports that Sony, through its PlayStation division, is looking to partner with local game developers and publishers, chiefly Pearl Abyss. According to MTN, Sony is interested in securing exclusive content for the upcoming game Crimson Desert. As WCCF Tech readers may recall, Crimson Desert was first announced at G-Star 2019 alongside Shadow Arena. Sorry, it's got a bunch of stuff going on here. It continues by saying Kay Powell was there at G-Star 2019, mere months, blah, 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 blah. Says, however, the developers said that they're expecting to complete the development of Crimson Desert this year, which is why Sony may be interested in securing a partnership with Pearl Abyss at this point. Here's an overview. Well, I'm not going to go over an overview of the game, but essentially what is going on here is we have been seeing Sony pursue some Korean partnerships, and this was something that was formally announced by Sony, where they made it clear that we want to talk to more Korean developers, see if we can strike more exclusivity deals for the PlayStation 5 from Korean developers. Now, we are beginning to see a more significant push with this, with what's going on with Stellar Blade. I see we have Hellbound 1981, a legend. A legend returns today, and he drops 5 membership gifts. Hellbound clearly wants to see Boss here rewarded with some snacks, which is awesome to see. So, guys, let's get some W's in the chat for Hellbound. Really appreciate you kicking us off today with that. And as you can see, Hellbound is a very generous donor here to the channel. He's always putting in a lot of work here to grow the membership community. So, really appreciate that, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We also have New Soul 9. New Soul, I'm going to read your super chat in just a moment, man. I'm going to finish just going over this info, so that way we don't get too sidetracked. So just hang tight for me, buddy. But I have another report here where it says Stellar Blade developer officially becomes a PlayStation second-party partner. This is being reported by Gaming Bolt. Korean studio Shift Up's upcoming action title Stellar Blade has turned quite a few heads with each of its showings, and the fact that Sony has thrown its full weight behind it and marketed it as a major upcoming PS5 exclusive has created its fair share of excitement as well. Now, the partnership has become cemented even further. As spotted by Genki Japan on Twitter, it's been announced that Shift Up and Sony have formalized a publishing agreement that will see the latter acting as the worldwide publisher and distributor for Stellar Blade. That means Shift Up has officially become a second-party PlayStation studio partner, becoming the first South Korean studio to do so. Now, that is the significant part here. This is the first South Korean studio to officially be integrated into PlayStation Studios as a second-party partner. A second-party partnership with Sony is a pretty big deal because it is essentially the intermediary between, a third-party partnership and Sony full-blown possibly looking to acquire the studio. And you know, Blue Point Games, Housemarque, these are studios that had second-party partnerships with Sony for many years, and they led to them eventually getting acquired. It says here Stellar Blade is in development exclusively for PS5, though details on when it will launch remain scant. People are losing their minds over that. When it was shown off last year, the game was given a 2023 launch window, though in the aforementioned announcement, ShiftUp has provided no specific release date and instead only says that information will, quote, be revealed at a later date, end quote. So yeah, this is good news for the game, obviously, for the big deal for the studio, but obviously people want to know. People want to know, when's this game coming out? When's this game coming out? Wait, it's clearly not coming out in 2023. I think that's obvious. Unless they just shadow drop it at the Game Awards. Not going to happen. But I want to read the official announcement here. Now, this is a translation, so it might be a little rough, but this comes from ShiftUp. They say ShiftUp announced on the 24th that it has signed a PlayStation PS5 distribution contract for Stellar Blade with Sony Interactive Entertainment, a manufacturer of the PlayStation brand products. ShiftUp plans to collaborate with SIE to introduce the AAA masterpiece console game Stellar Blade on the PS5 console throughout the world, including Korea. Through this contract, ShiftUp officially becomes the first Korean company to join Sony's second-party partner. Stellar Blade first announced development news under the name Project Eve in 2019 and announced that it would challenge the global console market as a AAA game. Afterwards, in 2021, it was the only game introduced at the official PlayStation Showcase to be released with a Korean dub and was introduced several times in leading American media and online communities, receiving great attention. In 2022, PlayStation State of Play announced the launch of the PS5 with the official name Stellar Blade, raising user expectations. With this contract, ShiftUp has become official as Sony's second party, and expectations for box office success have grown further due to the development ability and successful experience proven through the performance of the Goddess of Victory Nike and the solid partnership. Additionally, ShiftUp is attracting attention for its ability to create new IP through Stellar Blade. So, yeah, this is again, this is kind of a big deal for the studio. You could tell the studio is amped about this. You can tell that Sony believes in this game. And it's interesting to me because it seems like this game may prove to be a lot bigger and much more significant than I ever realized, especially now that they are. Yeah. So, Irfan, you're saying they have a huge mobile game? Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. That might be another reason. That might be another reason why Sony is eyeing them like this. But let me read the super chat from New Soul 9, which I really appreciate, buddy. You're saying, MBG, I find it generally difficult to comprehend how the Xbox not selling is dire for Microsoft. It would only be dire if they followed the PlayStation model again, but they are not. So I see this as a nothing burger. Well, here's the thing. So we'll shift lanes here for a moment. See, this is what's been weird. Look, man, people are getting, not you and New Soul 9, I'm not talking about you, but people are getting worked up about facts, and they need to stop. Like, they just need to stop getting so upset about things that are just factual. Now you're saying dire. Now I'm not using that word right now. I think if I were to just give my emotional response based off of the data and the facts that I'm seeing, to me, the situation for the Xbox console itself seems dire. Not Microsoft as a company, not the Xbox brand as a whole, but the console itself, it's looking dire. As in, it's just getting worse and worse, and it's not improving. But the fact that I'm mentioning here, like the fact, it comes from data. And I put in my, I put out a video on Friday, and I put in my title, PlayStation 5 has no competition right now. And it just triggers people. It just triggers Xbox fans. It triggers, I guess, people who are considering themselves neutrals and whatnot. And they get all upset at me. And it's like, there's nothing, like, that is a fact. There's nothing I can do to change that fact. There's nothing you can do to change that fact. Right now, the PS5 console, and that's the key thing about it too, is I even use the words right now, which implies it can and likely will change at some point in the future. But that is literally a fact right now based off of the data that the Switch is coming to an end because they're making way for a new gen console, and Xbox has pretty much given up on the console model, at least in terms of trying to actually push it to be successful. So right now in the home console space, the PS5 literally, factually does not have competition, or at least any type of meaningful competition. And it's funny because like somebody replied in the comments and are like, Microsoft should be worried. We should be worried. And it's like, well, yeah, to a degree, we should be. We want to see Sony have competition in the console space. We definitely don't want to see Microsoft exit the console market. We need to see Nintendo come out strong with the Switch 2 and, give Sony a little bit of, give them a reason to pay close attention to what the Switch may be doing and how this may impact PS5 console sales. But it's just crazy to me that, like, Xbox Defense Force comes out when they hear stuff like this. And I get it. You're hearing it from me. Listen, I have to cover what's going on with the Xbox console. I don't care what people think, man, where they're like, oh, well, you're a PlayStation content creator. All you want to do is talk about Xbox. Listen, what's going on with the Xbox console right now is extremely relevant to the future of the PlayStation console, because at the rate things are going, the only competition Sony may actually have in the console space is from Nintendo. And that is, listen, it's just a bad thing all around for the console space if Sony only has one major competitor. It's better to have two major competitors. The more competition, the better. The less likely Sony is to fall into the ways of greed and, just trying to take advantage of their customer base. Some people might say they're already doing that. I don't know that I agree fully. Certainly not. But you can kind of tell that, like, Sony, they're in a position of power in the console space. They know it. That could change. We have no idea how Activision Blizzard is going to impact console sales. All we know is that Starfield did nothing for console sales. Bethesda has done nothing for console sales. All these games and announcements that Microsoft has had have done nothing for console sales. And it seems clear that people are just, they have no real reason, truthfully. And I don't mean this in a fanboy way, because I know that's how people want to take it. But it's just true that right now, the market is clearly letting Microsoft know that you're not giving us a real reason to buy the console. And I get it. I get it. Microsoft's response to that is, okay, we don't care. Are you subscribed to Game Pass? Are you playing on PC? Boss, bro. He is attacking these snacks. You can't yet. It's not time. We'll get there, buddy. We'll get there. Come on, guys. Boss, he's losing it over these snacks. We got to get to this goal. We got to get there quick because I don't know if you can see him. He's like buried inside of the he's like burying himself inside this cubby hole here. But hang tight, buddy. But that's the thing, is it's like, yes, I understand, and I think everybody understands that Microsoft's priority is not the console. But again, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have serious implications on the console market. It absolutely does. The last thing I want to see happen is Microsoft exit the console market. The last thing I want to see happen is them say, you know what, we just don't care about the console anymore, like at all, because that's going to be good for Sony and what they're trying to achieve in being a market leader and selling PS5s. But that's not, like, to me, that's not gonna, there's no way, bro. Okay, maybe it was a mistake to bring these in here. Boss, you're gonna have to hang tight. All right, don't you jump up here. Don't you do it. I'm gonna have to give him at least one right now to satiate him, because he's here. There. All right, he's gonna go. Sorry, he's very distracting right now. But that's the thing. It will not be a good thing for the console market, generally speaking. If And this is why I just can't stand, and again, not you, New Soul 9, because I get what you're saying. But to say it's a nothing burger is just not, it's just simply not true. It's not. And the reason for that is because people, if you listen, it's only a nothing burger if you decide that you don't care about the console market literally at all. If you've never cared about it and you stopped caring about it, or even if you did and you stopped caring about it, then it's a nothing burger. But that's very strange to me that suddenly Xbox fans, again, Xbox, a brand that started with a literal console, it is strange to me if Xbox fans decide to say, now because Microsoft doesn't care about the console, well, we don't care either. That's weird to me because it's like, I understand Microsoft's side of it where it's like, yeah, Microsoft actually has incentive right now, seemingly, to not care as much. But from the fan side of it, I do not understand it. You know, it's almost like at what point are you basically cheering on the demise of the console that this company, that this gaming company that you care about or that you're attached to, even if it's just your Game Pass, at what point are you basically cheering that on? And that's what's weird to me. That's what we're seeing. And it's because people get so mad. It's like, well, what do you mean the PS5 has no competition? Like, who cares? Microsoft, like, I don't need your explanation. You don't need to explain anything to me. I understand that Microsoft doesn't care about the console. That's not their priority, you know? But this is where I think people just need to take a step back and realize that there are greater implications to this as a whole across the console market. And so if somebody says to me, MBG, I literally do not give a single shit about the console market. I never have and I never will. Okay. Well, then I get it is absolutely a nothing burger. But if you at any point in time cared about the Xbox console, cared about the console experience and how enjoyable it was, or is, right? You got it. You got to care about it. We have Chris B. Chris B coming in, putting in some more work here for the community. Chris B drops 5 more memberships, following up Hellbound, bring us up to 10 members on the day. Boss absolutely destroyed those snacks. I gave him a little tease there. Chris B, thank you so much, man. You've been gifting channel memberships very consistently, and I have noticed, and it means a lot, man. So, guys, let's get some W's in the chat for Chris. He brings us up to 10 on the day, so we are on our way. We are on our way, guys. Let me add that to the counter. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, yeah, New Soul 9, I guess what this boils down to is I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't care about, okay? That's obviously pointless in doing so. I'm just here to acknowledge and call out the fact that the situation for the Xbox console right now is looking dire. And if you don't want to use the word dire, we could just use the word very bad, not good. Call it whatever you want, but it's negative. And that is not something I'm celebrating. That is not something that I think is a win. Because it's reached a point where it's like, holy shit, I don't think Microsoft actually cares about this console at all anymore. And that is concerning for me as a consumer, as a fan, because it's like, I don't want to see this lead to less competition. Now, if Sony was beating them 2-1 or something, or or not 2-1, but like if Microsoft had 35 million units sold and it was selling better than the Xbox One, but the PS5 was still ahead, I'd say, okay, that's some healthy competition there. That's some healthy competition. But at the rate it's going, it's just like, what are they going to do to get these console sales up? Nothing? Because they don't care? That's not good. I don't see that as a good thing. And we have Exley 3000. Exley 3000 comes in swinging out of nowhere and drops a 10 bomb on us. 10 memberships gifted for the community, just like that. Another legend arriving, showing some incredible support here, bringing us up to 20 members. Guys, we are 5 away. As you can see, Boss is eagerly awaiting more treats here. He went so crazy for him, I had to give him some a little bit early. So if we can get 5 more members, Boss will get 5. Maybe I'll give him 8 more treats because he seriously loves this stuff, man. He loves this stuff. So, Exley, big shout out to you, man.
Appreciate it.
I'll give you a crazy honor for that 10 bomb. Let me add that to the counter here. And just to finish off with the super chat, New Soul 9, my hope right now is that Microsoft will see their console sales increase. Something that I think people are not fully understanding of is I want to see Xbox console sales increase. I do. I want to see the data change. I want to see the facts change as we go into 2024. Now that they have Activision Blizzard, it remains to be seen if that's going to make a significant impact. But I want to see Xbox console sales increase because it will show a sign that, okay, all right, it was on the downturn, but now it's coming back around and they're going to start climbing up. And there's going to be more, like, it's going to lead to a little bit, even if it's a little bit, it's going to lead to a little bit more competition between Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo in the console space. But as we continue to see it go down at the rate it is, it's just like Sony and Nintendo are not even going to look in the direction of Microsoft, and that is concerning to me in the console space. And we have Matt Fu. Matt Fu, somebody else who's another channel member here who's also been showing up more frequently to streams, dropping more memberships. He does it, boss. You can thank Exley, Chris B, Matt Fu, and Hellbound, because these guys brought to you by hitting our goal here some more snacks. Let me update this. I'll give them some more snacks and we'll continue our conversation. Amazing stuff. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for getting us to the goal. Bear with me here. I have so many different things on my screen here. I'm trying to keep up with it all. I mean, Boss has always really liked treats, but this is the first time. This is the first time I've bought treats for him, or my wife actually picked them up, where they actually have catnip in it. So he's really, really loving these treats. But look at that. You guys are beasts, absolute monsters, crushing the goal already. Here we go. You want some more? I'll give you some more. He's like, hell yeah, I want some more. There we go. Okay, I think I gave you a little too much there. Gotta space it out. Can't overfeed him, you know? That just wouldn't be good. But enjoy, boss. Boss thanks you guys. He's loving it, bro. Boss is like, dude, what did I do to deserve this? Not too much, MBG. We need boss healthy. I know. You know what happened yesterday? I had these sitting on my desk, and he knocked them over, and the top came off, and they were everywhere. And I was like, no way, dude. I was like, I can't believe you just did that. And he was going, I had to like quickly try to pick it up because he was going crazy trying to eat them. He didn't eat too many though. I picked it up pretty quickly, but I was like, man, he really wants these things. But big shout out to this community for already getting us to 25 members, crushing the goal. Let me see here. So New Soul 9, I hope that answered your question. Like, if it's a nothing burger for you, I can respect that, and I'm fine with that. But I can only assume, New Soul 9, that if it is truly a nothing burger for you, it's because you just don't care about the console space anymore and where, you know, the potential long-term competitive side of it at the rate things are going, which is fine. And I see we have AJ. AJ comes in. Guys, we need some W's in the chat for AJ and everybody else because these guys are going nuts today. AJ comes in and he drops 5 more memberships on this community. Full-blown membership train going. We are now at 30 members and counting. AJ, thank you so much for that support, my friend. It's incredible to see. I can't thank you guys enough. AJ,
thank you.
That's for you. And I'm going to throw in a Jin Sakai. A Jin Sakai, because we want Ghost of Tsushima 2. When is Ghost of Tsushima 2 coming? But AJ, thank you so much for that support, my friend. We have a super chat from Josh, and he says, let's all take in the fact that we don't need to hear ABK deal nonsense anymore. And it's back to pure gaming podcast with MBG. That's how I know God's real. Yeah, well, that's the thing. We don't have to hear about the ABK deal anymore, nor do we have to talk about it because it's done. It's over, and I am happy for that. But now the conversation is naturally going to transition going into 2024 into what decisions Microsoft is going to make now that they own Activision Blizzard. I think it's very interesting. I think it's very interesting that Microsoft or Phil Spencer said, we're not really talking about anything we're doing with Activision Blizzard until next year. That tells me that they certainly have some plans. They have some announcements they're going to make. And the only thing I'm really interested in finding out is what these potential announcements and plans, how they may impact PlayStation, right? Because they might not impact PlayStation at all. One of the announcements they might make is we're not making any games exclusive. They're all just going to be multi-plat. They're all going to release on PS5. And if that's the case, then, hey, that's good news. Like, there's nothing to really discuss here. It's just going to stay the way it was, I guess. Maybe just get more games now, which is, now that Microsoft is, I guess, going to try to do more with some of the Activision IP. But yes, I hear you, man. I think the only thing we really have to look out for at this point on both sides in terms of Sony and Microsoft is going into 2024, the consolidation is not going to stop. The consolidation is not going to stop. We're going to continue to see both of these companies, although I think at this point in time, it's a little bit more likely we'll start to see Sony try to do more, but we're going to see them continue to try to make acquisitions. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know that any acquisition news we get in 2024 is going to be as big as the Activision news is, because that's huge, man. The Activision news is, hearing that they are getting acquired. I mean, they're one of the biggest. So, but you never know. You never know. So, Josh, thank you so much, man. We have PlayStation Pete, a longtime member, 24 months. Really appreciate that, man. I see your badge just changed over. Amazing to see. You're saying if you have the money, do you pay $350 for the portal on StockX, or do you wait until there's more supply on PlayStation Direct? Interesting. Well, I don't want to tell anybody what to do with their money, first and foremost. Like it's your money. If the difference between you being happy is paying that $350 and it's not going to hurt you in any way, I don't see any problem with it. But at the same time, I do want to just let you know that I don't think there's any chance that the portal remains scarce. I just don't see that happening. I think what we are witnessing right now is Sony produced a low amount just to see, like, is there demand for this? And I think they're finding out that, okay, there's definitely more demand than we thought. And that's why scalpers are picking them up and reselling them for $350. But I think if you're just willing to wait a little bit, and I could be wrong, and that's why I don't want to tell you what to do, because I could be wrong, but I do really think that if you're just willing to wait a little bit, even if it's just a couple months, I think Sony's going to saturate the market with them to get it to a point where we are with the PS5 now. They created artificial scarcity. In this case, it is artificial because they could definitely produce more. But you could tell that they didn't. And I don't think it was because we want this thing to be scarce. It's a matter of like how much, the last thing Sony wanted to do is overproduce these things and just have them sitting in warehouses. That would be bad for them. But I think now they have a general idea of like, okay, the first batch went. Let's get some more produced and see how quickly those go. And if the second batch goes as quickly as the first, then you might see Sony really start to ramp it up a little bit. But I don't think you should. I don't think you should make a purchase of a portal for $350 under the assumption that you're not going to be able to get your hands on one anytime remotely soon. This is not a PS5 situation. The PS5 was not artificial scarcity. The PS5 was scarce because they literally couldn't produce enough because of everything that happened with the pandemic and, these their manufacturing partners. That's not the situation right now. I think Sony even said that we're going to have more in stock by December. So you can tell that they gave the green light, like, yeah, make more, produce more, and by December they'll likely be restocked. And I fully believe that in 2024 you will be able to buy a PlayStation Portal easily. So again, I don't want to tell you what to do with your money, PlayStation Pete, because I feel like that's a decision you have to make. I don't want to tell people what to do, but just think about it. If it's something you really feel like you want right now, if you want it right now and you just can't wait, well, do what you got to do. Your happiness is what's important there, right? But if you're able to be a little bit patient and wait a little bit, and it's not like I need it now, I don't think you'll have to worry. I think in the next like 30 days or so, you'll probably be able to pick one up. So appreciate that, PlayStation Pete. We also had Planet Schlorpian here with a chat. He says it's always next year, yet every year is nothing. We're one step closer to the good old days with just Sony and Nintendo competing in the market. I mean, yeah, it is funny to think that there was a time in the console space where it really was mainly just, it was just Sony and Nintendo, and that's what kind of prompted Microsoft to enter the market. And so listen, I'm gonna talk about this a little bit later, or maybe I'll just talk about it now. I don't know. I'm trying to. It's hard because that's the nature of these streams, man. Like I want to stay on track and I want to go in a certain direction, but sometimes these thoughts emerge. There's something I wanted to tell you about what's going on right now with PlayStation console sales and Xbox console sales, and Sony and Microsoft and the different directions they're going in, and where I honestly think Microsoft is headed, and where I think Sony's headed. And I think that there are some people that are in a kind of in denial a little bit right now about it. And I get it because, like, it is hard to believe. Like, it is kind of crazy to think that this is where things may actually be headed. In fact, there are multiple signs right in front of us, like flashing signs, like saying, like, this is where we're headed. But I could see why some people would not want to accept it because it would be, listen, it would be colossal. I mean, it would be such a um a paradigm shift in the entire gaming landscape. One that we haven't seen pretty much since Xbox decided to exist and say we're gonna make a console and we're part of the fray now, you know? So I'll talk about that. Just remind me in case I forget. I want to talk about it when I go over the information about the PlayStation Portal. Okay? So just remind me. But yeah, Planet Schlorpian, I appreciate the super chat, my friend. We also have Sisp21, who says PlayStation has learned from past mistakes. Tencent or another major publisher could step in and fill the void for Xbox. So I don't think PlayStation will become complacent. Well, that's another thing here is like, if things continue the way they're going, if things continue to go this way and we do see a lessening of competition in the console market, the assumption is that Sony will become more arrogant and less consumer friendly, and basically they will behave this way because they just don't have the competitive incentive to do otherwise. And I get that. I'm in that boat, to be clear. Like, I don't want to risk that happening. It doesn't mean it will. That's the thing, though. It doesn't guarantee it. You're saying they already are? Well, see, that's the thing, man, is like people keep talk. I see people talk like that all the time. Like they talk like Sony is already that. And it's like, well, maybe I could see why some people think that, but it could get a lot worse. Like it definitely could get a lot worse. And there are definitely certain realities right now that if Sony did want to do certain things, the fact that Microsoft is still producing consoles, the fact that Microsoft is buying studios and they still have games that they're making, right? The fact that Nintendo is getting ready to release a next-gen Switch that will likely get great third-party support. These are things that, again, heavily incentivize Sony to not cross the line and go crazy because, you know, in general, the market will only be so accepting of certain things. Like you can only take it so far. But I don't like, from what I can tell, again, maybe this is subjective, but from what I can tell, Sony isn't doing any, like the worst thing they're probably doing right now is with PlayStation Plus. Out of everything they're doing, I would say PlayStation Plus is the one area where people are like very much like, I don't know about that one. Like that's pretty, like if you want a year of PlayStation Plus Premium, like that's very expensive. And I think that's where people might kind of, and I have seen it. I've seen people basically looking at Sony and be like, are you nuts? Like I'm good. I'm not gonna pay for that. But I have seen other people say like, hey, I think it's a good deal. Extra and premium, I like it. I'm fine with paying that. It pays for itself with how much I play and how much I use it. So again, it's kind of like a 50-50 thing here. It's more mixed than you would think. But all this is to say that we don't know that PlayStation or that Sony would become complacent with less competition, but we need to assume they would, because they could sit back and say we don't want to go in that direction and become more anti-consumer and take advantage of our you know our market share and the fact that we don't really have competition. We don't want to do that because that's the thing about that. You want to talk about learning from the past. Sony was already there with the PlayStation 2. And I'm not saying they were like being, I don't know. I was really young at the time, so I can't tell you, but I don't think Sony was being super arrogant at the end of the PlayStation 2 era. Maybe they were. I know but the PS3 era, right? The beginning of the PS3 era, that is Sony at their most arrogant, at their most anti-consumer, where they're literally just saying, like, go get a second job if you want a PS3. And what Sony learned in that moment, in that period of time, is the more anti-consumer you become, the more arrogant you become, even if you have no competition, you're literally paving the way for your competition. You're paving that road for them. And that's exactly what Sony did with the 360. They made it easy as hell for Microsoft to capitalize with the 360 and do all of the things that Sony isn't doing. Whatever Sony's doing, do the opposite and our console will succeed. And that's exactly what they did. Get out there sooner, get out there cheaper, have some exclusive games, have, if possible, better exclusive games. In the beginning of the Xbox 360, I mean, they really knocked Sony on their ass, and Sony did it. They let them. Like, Sony basically said, like, go ahead, do it. And that's why I think, like, it would be a hell of a thing for Sony to get back into that position, because it's like you've already been down that road. Like, where that road leads, and it leads to you getting knocked on your ass by an emerging competitor that you didn't see coming or that you didn't take seriously. And it could be Microsoft. Like, Microsoft has not exited the console space. They could just be sitting back and saying, look, we'll just scrape by with minimal console sales. But if the day comes where Sony gets complacent in the console space, we'll strike. Microsoft has not exited the console space. And that's a very important thing to understand with this conversation. I'm speaking very much as if they already have. They have not. So they could just produce consoles for the next 10, 15 years, and they might sell horribly, and they might not even be, considered in the competitive console race or whatever. But as long as they're still there and they don't actually go away, I mean, if you want to really get into the weeds of it here, is Microsoft banking on Sony's arrogance and complacency? Maybe. It's certainly a long-term play if that's what they're doing, but that would be a risky one. That would be a risky one. But yeah, we don't know for sure that Sony would get complacent. I would want to believe they would not be that stupid. Like, surely you're not stupid enough to walk the same path you did with the PS3 coming off of the PS2. I want to believe that, but at the same time, like, they are a corporation and they're run by business executives, and I will never underestimate sometimes just the level of stupidity that can come out of these boardrooms. Not just for Sony. I mean, I'm talking across all corporations. I mean, you can never underestimate the level of stupidity with decision making that can occur, because it's like the saying goes, like, what can happen will happen. I feel like in the gaming industry, we have seen that. We have 100% seen that, and it is sad every time. MBG, is ignorance equal to stupidity? No. Well, I don't know. I guess in a way it kind of is. If it's willful ignorance, I mean, you could argue that. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's almost like a philosophical question right there. I'm just going to say, for the sake of simplicity, they may as well be the same thing, because when it comes to things like this, Sony's being ignorant. Sony's being stupid. I mean, generally speaking, people are going to come to the conclusion that that basically means the same thing in this context. Too early for the philosophy segment? I agree. It's too early. Haven't had enough coffee for that yet. Yo, boss is knocked out. Look at what you guys did to boss. Gave him 10 of these treats. He's passed the F out, man. That is funny. It's definitely not a philosophical question. It's a Webster's Dictionary question. That's true. I could just look up the definitions of each. But before I get too sidetracked here, we have Michael Lynch with a $2 super chat. He says, pay to win channel. The incentive, happy cat. There you go, man. Pay to win channel. You guys want to see boss happy? You got to pay to make that happen. I don't know, man. I just figured it's something we do for fun. Of course, I'm not going to withhold his treats. Just, well, guys, we didn't hit the goal today. Sorry, boss. No treats for you. I'm still going to give him the treats, but, just for fun. But I appreciate the super chat, Michael. New Soul 9 with another chat. He says, that's a great point, MBG. I should have acknowledged the other side that still care about the console. I'm sorry. I take what I said of Nothing Burger back. Well, you have to apologize, man. I understand where you're coming from, New Soul 9, because what I've noticed is that it is difficult to have reasonable conversations on the internet about these things, and especially right now, talking about Xbox and PlayStation. Believe me when I tell you, it is more toxic than I've ever seen it. All around. I don't know why, but it has become almost unbearably toxic, and that will change eventually. It's going to take time. Maybe there was a time in the past where it was more toxic than this, but I wasn't as involved in the conversation to know. But right now, the conversation is so toxic that if you just try to explain, like, hey, listen, Microsoft is fine as a company. Obviously, they're doing great. They're Microsoft. They're one of the most powerful companies in the world. The Xbox brand is doing fine as well, but the Xbox console is doing very badly. There's just going to be people out there that well, I hope you're ready to fight with them because that's what you just said. That's all they heard is I want to tell you why PlayStation shits on Xbox and I want to fight you now on the internet. It's crazy. Like it's wild, man, where it's like, I don't know, dude. It's not even remotely that serious, but people just get so crazy with this stuff where it's like, listen, man, I appreciate you saying that, New Soul 9, though, because you're see, what you just did, a lot of people wouldn't do. They wouldn't say, you know what, I didn't really think of that side of it, and I've considered it, and you know what, I take that back. And that's good because now we're at a middle ground. You know what I mean? Where it's like, we both acknowledge that Microsoft is in a good, powerful position as a corporation with a gaming brand. They can pretty much do what they want now, especially now that they own ABK. But we both also acknowledge that in terms of the console space, it's not looking very good at all. And, it remains to be seen what's going to happen in that area. And these two things can exist separately and both be true at the same time. So I appreciate that, And I appreciate the super chats, New Soul 9. We have Sean Mitchell, member for 7 months. Appreciate it, buddy. You're saying, having a bit of a rough week, MBG. I look forward to these Sunday streams as it's a good escape with such a great community. Keep up the good work, MBG. Well, thank you so much for that, Michael. Or Sean, sorry, Sean Mitchell. I don't know why I said Michael. I really do appreciate that. It's good to know that, this community can sometimes act as a little haven away, I guess, to just kind of talk about games, talk about PlayStation, talk about what's going on in the console war universe between PlayStation and Xbox. But I really appreciate that feedback, man, and I'm glad you enjoy the Sunday streams. I've been streaming a lot, obviously, on the channel, and I know that not everybody can catch all of them, but I've always tried to make sure to keep doing these Sunday streams because that's where it all started, right? Doing the Press X podcast Sundays, and I know a lot of people still look forward to the Sunday streams, even if I'm streaming throughout the week and they can't catch the other ones. So Good stuff, Sean. I appreciate that. And thank you for being a longtime member. We have a Planet Schlorpian again. He says Xbox was competitive enough to have body wash AOP. That's true, man. Like I'm telling you, we just if PlayStation develops their own body wash, then that's acceptable competition. That's the level of competition that I need to see where Sony feels the pressure. They got to make their own body wash. Is it going to smell as good? Is it going to be as refreshing? I don't know. Come on, Sony. Get on it. That's true. You are right. PlayStation, they still have that pasta. But the thing about the PlayStation pasta is it's only in one select region. They need to bring that out worldwide. Because I love pasta. And if Sony wants to sell me some PlayStation pasta, I'll buy that shit. Hell yeah. Michael Wernath with a $5 chat. He says, MBG in chat, do you like games that are 40 to 50 hours long at $70? Or would you prefer games that are 20 to 25 hours long for $40 to $45? It's a great question. I mean, obviously, the chat will give their own answer here. But for me, this is going to sound crazy. But I would be okay with $70 games being 20 to 25 hours long. If the quality of that game justifies it. Because I feel like what you're saying here is, like, would I prefer to pay $40 or $45 or $50 for a 25 hour game? Yes, I would. Yes, absolutely. I would love to, if there was like some kind of cutoff where it's like, well, the game didn't pass the 30-hour mark, so we can only sell it for $50. I'd be like, yeah, that's great. But that's not realistic. You know what I mean? I think that it's been kind of proven over time that the length of a game and the amount of time it takes to complete a game or do everything in the game does not equate to quality. You know, it's been proven that that's just not how it works. It's usually more complicated than that. There's usually more to it than that. And that's why I would say that if you give me a 20 to 25 hour game and you say this game's $70, I'm going to assume that there are things in this game that are on a very high quality level that will justify you asking me for $70. So by the time I play that 20 or 25 hours, I should be able to look back and say, wow, that was one of the better games I've played, well worth the money I paid for it, you know? And we have Belafonte. Belafonte comes in and he says, I want to keep this membership train going strong today for MBG and his community, and he decides he wants to drop a membership as well. Guys, I want to see some W's in the chat right now for Belafonte for keeping it going. Really appreciate that, bud. That is for you. And I'll put give you a snake as well. So he brings us up to 31 members on the day. 31 members. This community is amazing. Thank you guys so much. But it's a great question, Michael. I think it's one that, you know, it's one that people are going to continue to ask, and it's understandable. $70 for a game, $50 for a game. I mean, this is a lot of money for a product. And, you know, you really, I think, just want to feel at the end of the day, not that, man, I put 100 hours into this, so it feels justified. You know, that price I paid it. I don't think that's what people are seeking out. I think what people are really seeking out is just how meaningful was it, right? How impactful was it? Because, again, when I think about some of the greatest video game experiences I've had in my life, I never think about how long they were. Like that, honestly, when I think about my favorite games, the length of the game means nothing. It's only if I'm asked to think about it. Well, it's like, okay, how long did it take you to complete, Ghost of Tsushima? It's like, well, for me, it took like 130 hours because I did everything. But I had no idea. Like, I was lost in that world and in that game, and I wasn't keeping track of the hours played. It was only until I completely finished that I looked, and I was like, oh, shit, put 130 hours into this game. Now, if you had told me that this game is going to take 130 hours to complete, prior to that, I would have been a little bit nervous and a little bit, well, like, how much padding am I going to experience? And like, that's the thing is I would almost prefer, and this might be an unpopular thing that I'm saying here, but I would almost prefer developers didn't tell me how long their game was. I don't want to know how long it takes to beat the story. I don't want to know how long it takes to complete your game. I just want to judge it for what it is. And then I'll look afterwards and factor that into the equation. That's how I personally feel about it. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want a developer to take advantage of that and be like, well, we're going to secretly make this game 3 hours and we don't have to tell anybody. Like, no, that's dumb. That game would still fail, because people would be like, what the hell? But I'm just saying, like, I don't want, for example, like Wolverine, right? Obviously, we're gonna cover it when it comes out, but I don't want Insomniac to tell me how long Wolverine is. I don't care. Like, I do not care. The game could be 10 hours for all I care. I'm only going to be judging it by the quality of my experience with that title from start to finish. So, don't get me wrong. There is a kind of minimum expectation, right? Like, I don't want to pretend that if Wolverine was a 4-hour game, I would have zero problems. Like, no, I would, obviously. I would have to turn around and say, like, whoa, 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 what is going on here? Like, this is kind of crazy and unprecedented. You charge me $70 for a 4-hour experience. That's a little nutso. Yeah, that would be a little nutso because that's not. I mean, that would open a door to an entire different conversation. But there is a minimum expectation. I guess what I'm saying is, I believe that every AAA game developer is at least going to meet that minimum where it's like, well, our game isn't going to be like 5 hours or 6 hours, because it's going to be really hard to justify charging $70 for a 5 to 6 hour experience. No matter what, no matter how good it is, that's a very difficult proposition to make, So, yeah, it's a great question. It leads to some interesting conversations. I would just prefer, frankly, to not know how long a game is. Like, okay, if we get that God of War expansion, if it's true that the God of War expansion is going to be like a Miles Morales type thing, don't tell me how long it is. I do not care. If it's $50, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to assume, listen, man, every hour I spend with this is going to be a quality hour. Now, if I'm done with it in 2 hours, I'm going to have some questions. I'm definitely going to have some questions, but we know it's going to be more than 2 hours. So, if I buy it and I do everything in it for $50 and it's like, you spent 18 hours with this or like 16 hours, I'd be like, money well spent. Actually, you're saying $60 for Lies of P and I am at 106 hours so far. Best $60. I just started playing it. We're going to be doing a gameplay stream. Wink, wink. We're going to be doing a gameplay stream in the members lounge today. So actually, I hope you join us. But yeah, I just started playing Lies of P, and it's a perfect example of, like, I don't want to know how long this game is. I paid full price for it because I was sold on everything I've seen of it. It seems like there's quite a bit on offer. It looks really fun. It looks really good. And I don't care if it takes me 15 hours to beat it. I don't care if it takes me 50 hours to beat it. I just want to know that by the time I'm done, I look back and say, man, that was a great game. Money well spent. So, you paid $16 for Lies of P. Well, damn. That's really good. You platinumed it on Friday? Good stuff, dude. We got Perfect Image here. He says, just finished Mafia 2, but Vito went through a lot. Yeah, I'm happy to hear you enjoyed it, man. I'm assuming that's from playing it on PlayStation Plus. Yeah, I saw Mafia 2 is on PlayStation Plus, and I saw some people were pretty excited about it. I never really played the Mafia games. Can't say I'm going to play it right now, but maybe I'll have to add that to the collection. How many of you guys have a PlayStation Plus collection of games just sitting there that you've never touched? I feel like most PS Plus subscribers do. All right, so we're going to circle all the way back now. Okay, we're going to circle all the way back, and we're going to get back to the original topic. There are new viewers here that didn't catch what I said earlier. Just to give you a quick refresh, Sony has signed a deal with development team SHOUTOUT on Stellar Blade, and this studio has officially become a second-party PlayStation partner. Okay, they've officially become a second-party PlayStation partner. The reason why this is significant is not only because second-party PlayStation partners are a big deal to the PlayStation ecosystem and Sony as a whole, but it's the first Korean studio. Somebody says, "What the F is second party?" Well, I'll explain it to you and to anybody who doesn't fully understand. A second party partnership usually means this in the context of Sony. Sony will sign this development team like SHOUTOUT. They'll sign a deal with them, and what this deal usually entails is Sony will fund a portion of the game, if not the entire game. Sony will market and distribute the game. Sony will offer resources for the game if they need them, like with Sony XDev, where they will allow some of their own They have a dedicated XDev team that's actually, this is the purpose they serve, to work with their second party partners. So you are getting that kind of, for lack of a better term, like PlayStation expertise, I guess, if that's how you want to look at it. And here's a really important part. Here's a really, really important part about understanding second party deals. 99% of the time, in fact, I can't really even think of another time. I think maybe the only exception would be Quantum Dream, or Quantic Dream, sorry, where Sony actually gave them back their IP or let them buy from. I could be remembering wrong, but a very important thing to understand here is, yes, Sony owns the IP. That's usually the biggest deal here. Like, it's when we think about Bloodborne, From Software is a second party partner with Sony. When they made Bloodborne, Sony funded it, Sony distributed it, marketed it, and they own the Bloodborne IP. The only thing they don't own is the actual talent, is the studio. That's essentially what a second party partnership is. It's where Sony has ownership basically over everything except the actual team making the game. And that's different from third party, because third party, we're looking more along the lines of like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Sony doesn't own the team. They don't own the IP. They're probably, they may cover the cost of marketing, but they're probably not covering the entire cost of development. It's kind of shared. So these are the different levels. That's the main difference between second and third party. I know a lot of people don't fully understand it. It's understandable why they wouldn't understand it, because it's kind of confusing. But essentially what you need to know is a third party partnership, Sony has pretty much no ownership whatsoever. It's just simply, we paid to make this exclusive and to market it, and in rare cases, fund it a little bit. A second party deal is Sony has ownership over pretty much everything except the actual studio making the game. And if we look at Helldivers 2, it's another great example where Sony owns everything here. They own the IP. They own, they have ownership. Well, maybe ownership isn't the right word, but they're in charge of marketing. They're in charge of distribution. It all falls on them, except the development team is not Sony's responsibility. Sony cannot manage them. They cannot. They could probably like work with them and help make certain changes if that's what needs to happen. But they, at the end of the day, like, they don't have control over the team. And so when we think about first party, that's the only thing missing, right? The only thing that was ever missing from Housemarque, from Blue Point Games, when it comes to their partnership with Sony, is Sony did not own that studio or that team. Hello, Leia. Do you want some snacks too? Is that what it is? I have yet to get one of my cats to meow into the mic. But yes, now that Sony they purchased Blue Point Games. They purchased Housemarque. Sony always owned the IPs that they made in collaboration with them, but now they own the teams, the talent, and yeah. And so that is kind of the significance of a second party relationship. The second party relationship could almost be viewed as the beginning of what could be an acquisition. Now, it doesn't always result in an acquisition, of course. It doesn't. Um, second party partnership does not mean they're going to get acquired. It just means that they are one step closer to possibly getting acquired. Williams says MBG in the specific case, Sony does not own the Stellar Blade IP, but they do um, publish it. This new deal will make all future Shift Up games published by PlayStation. Interesting. Yeah, see, this is I was wondering about that. I was wondering if because this second party partnership is coming so late, if there's some kind of caveat here where maybe they're not going to own the Stellar Blade IP. My question, William, is who does own it at that point? Does the studio Shift Up own it? Um, I mean, the only reason here's my take on this. If Sony doesn't own the Stellar Blade IP, this is kind of a newer thing that Sony is doing here. Where wait, you're saying Shift Up is a publisher? Okay, maybe I had my wires crossed here. I thought Shift Up was the developer. Oh, okay. Shift Up. Yeah, this might be what's throwing me off here. See, that's news to me. This entire time, I thought Shift Up was an actual studio, like a development studio, not a publisher. Shift Up publisher. Shift Up Corporation is a South Korean game developer and publisher based in Seoul. Oh, okay. Now that's really okay. So that's actually okay. You know what? So this actually makes this even more significant than I realized. Now I know why. Yeah, Shift Up is a publisher and developer. Uh, Shift Up is a publisher. The developer is Second Eve. They maintain the rights to Stellar Blade, but they get the full support of Sony XDev, even more support than FF16. Yeah, this is what makes this even more interesting to me. We've have we seen? Yeah, I guess the closest, I don't know. Does Sony have a second party relationship with Square? Cuz when I look back now, if I look back at their write up here, Shift Up announced on the 24th that it signed distribution contract for Stellar Blade. Shift Up plans to collaborate with SIE to introduce the AAA masterpiece. I mean, they really kind of talked it up here, so I wonder how far this goes. I wonder how far this is going to go since Shift Up is a publisher. It's good news though. It is because so if Sony wants to get serious about courting some talent, you're saying reports say the partnership was to save the game when it was running out of funding. It could be something like that. Saying Shift Up is a small publisher with two studios. They don't have a second party relationship with Square. They have a third party partnership. SE still published FF16, Sony themselves are public. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it seems like, is this the first time we are seeing Sony actually officially formally announce a second party partnership with a publisher? I'm trying to think if there's any, ever been any other publishers where Sony had a second party relationship with? Because you're saying they're small, like they only have two studios, which tells me Sony's maybe trying to get in on the ground floor here, get in early in case they end up, growing. Koei Tecmo is a second party. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, you know what? I guess you're right. You're right because Rise of the Ronin has the Sony Interactive Entertainment logo, and I know XDev is developing that as well. This is really interesting, man. I guess Quantic Dream. I don't think Quantic Dream was ever a publisher, though. Were they? Koei Tecmo makes games for other platforms. It's not the entire publisher. Mm. Yeah, so I guess it gets even messier, right? Like the whole thing gets even more confusing when you realize that these second party partnerships extend beyond individual development studios, but can also extend into um into actual publishers as well. And I do wonder if Sony's going to look to try to do this more often now with these you know publisher partnership deals. Yeah, because that's the thing. When we talk about Helldivers 2, Arrowhead is just a studio. They are not a publisher. You're saying Shift Up is just a studio with a successful mobile game? I guess that's yeah. I mean, I guess that's why I was under the impression that they weren't actually a publisher and just a studio because somebody had mentioned that they make a successful mobile game. But I mean, I guess that's the thing. If they're publishing it, right? It's really interesting stuff, though, man. So here's something I want to say. Um, when it comes to Sony trying to court Korean development talent, I really think Sony should try to get a partnership going with NeoWiz, the development team behind Lies of P, because I'm playing Lies of P now, and look, I don't know if From Software is ever gonna make a Bloodborne 2, and of course Sony owns the Bloodborne IP. I'm not saying they should give NeoWiz the Bloodborne IP. I'm not saying that. But I just feel like there's this rumor that Sony is, they got another partnership deal with From Software and they're going to have another PS5 exclusive, but the rumor is that they're working on a new IP. This new IP could be something completely different than what we've ever seen before from Software. And if that's the case, like maybe I don't know, trying to court a studio like NeoWiz to kind of make that Soulsborne type experience, right? Just a thought. William, you're saying MBG. The difference here is Rise of the Ronin is one game that is second party. Stellar Blade was announced already to be second party. The news here is now all of Shift Up is second party, not just one game. Yeah, that's what's so interesting to me about this because it almost like my understanding of this, and if I'm understanding correctly, is this basically means that Sony just got even though they're very small, a small publisher to essentially produce PlayStation exclusives going forward because they're now officially partnered with this publisher. I don't know. Maybe Sony's plan is to try to help grow this publisher potentially. So, well, I mean, yeah, I guess the only question at that point would be since they are a smaller publisher, I guess if Sony were to acquire them, maybe people wouldn't be as impressed because most people probably wouldn't even know that they're a publisher. Like in my case, they're worth $761 million. Okay, yeah. To me, it's clear that Sony's trying to get in on the ground floor here. Not only that, but Stellar Blade is their first foray into AAA games. Yeah, the thing about Stellar Blade to me, like the gameplay of it looks really really good. From the story side, I'm a little bit mixed, but the gameplay looks really solid. Oh, by the way, guys, I meant to ask you this important question. I meant to ask this earlier. Maybe it's better than I'm asking now. Um, have have you experienced any issues with the stream today? Has there been any stuttering, any hitches, any lag of any kind? Any at all? Everybody's saying no. So you're telling me this stream has been like perfect so far? Some people are saying yes. A few people are saying yes. The reason why I'm asking is because I did get my new Ethernet cable and I changed it out. It was a pain in the ass because it's a long ass Ethernet cable, but I changed it out and I was telling you guys that I was thinking that was the problem. So hopefully that solves it. I'm not sure. It might come back. But hopefully that's what solves it. Because I was thinking, like, there's only one other thing that could be the problem at this point. I bought a really high quality one too. So it's a braided cable. So I don't think the cats will be able to chew it either. So, well, either way, guys. Just to finish off this topic, PlayStation has entered into a new exclusivity partnership with ShiftUp, who I'm learning in this stream is apparently a small publisher, not actually just a developer. But it's the first time that Sony's doing so with a Korean-based publisher slash studio. And it seems like, Sony is just trying. They're not slowing down. They're not slowing down when it comes to seeking out these partnerships. And I think this is a smart thing for them to do because, we've talked ad nauseum about Sony buying publishers, right? Like, should they make a play for Take-Two or Capcom or whatever? And it's like, well, maybe the best path forward for Sony is to just continue to seek out these meaningful partnerships that can bloom into something much more significant over time. So we will find out, guys. But either way, something we haven't found out yet, and I don't know, maybe the Game Awards if we're lucky. It's funny that this entire topic is surrounding a game, that being Stellar Blade, that, like people don't, no one knows. People don't know what to expect. Like, when's this game coming out? It was supposed to come out this year. We haven't heard anything. So hopefully this is a sign that we will get some news on this title sooner rather than later. Exley is excited for reasons. Exley is very excited for reasons. All right, we're going to move on to the second topic here, which talks about the PlayStation Portal doing the impossible. Oh my God, what's it doing, MBG? I'll tell you in just a second. I have to let Leia out. Leia was getting very annoyed with me because she wanted to leave. What is the PlayStation Portal doing? Well, it's seemingly outselling the Xbox Series consoles, at least in Spain, by a significant margin, which is, I mean, I don't know how that happens. I don't know how that happens. But I have a write-up here from, let me see, from Gaming Bolt. And they say the PlayStation Portal launched last week and early sales for the Remote Play handheld have been impressive all over the world. So impressive, in fact, that it's outselling other active platforms by quite a margin in some regions of the world. As reported by Games Reactor Spain, the PlayStation Portal sold over 5,700 units in Spain. That's nearly 3 times as much as what the Xbox Series X and S managed in the region, with collective sales of over 2,000 units. Xbox consoles have traditionally seen relatively low sales in European markets over the years, so this may not come as a massive surprise. Interestingly, however, the PlayStation Portal's launch sales were still lower than PlayStation VR 2, which sold over 8,000 units in Spain upon its launch earlier this year. So, a little bit lower than VR 2, but guys, like, what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on here? Now, granted, I know it's cheaper. I understand it's cheaper, but man, like, it's $100 difference between a PS Portal and a Series S. And more people, like, again, 3-to-1 ratio, more people chose the Series S, or the Portal. To me, it's not Look, to me, the big deal here is this. It's not even that it outsold the Xbox in Spain. It To me, the bigger deal is the Portal is doing way better than I think anybody thought it would. I mean, let's not pretend and people still with their reviews coming out now are not all of them, but some of them are really trying to say that this is no, this is a pointless product and it's a bad product and blah blah blah. And it's like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's people want this thing. It's clearly doing better than Sony thought it would. And I think it's doing better than a lot of people thought it would. But it is wild to see that it actually outsold the series consoles. Now, maybe it's probably not going to stay that way. It might stay that way, but that I don't think it'll stay that way forever. Certainly not. Arnie Vesper says, I'm also excited for reasons. It's going to be stellar. You're telling me Stellar Blade's going to be stellar? Arnie, you're losing me here, man. You're losing me. What do you mean Stellar Blade's going to be stellar? Waiting for the next shipments. Yeah, I think they said December. But to me, this is the PlayStation Portal is doing the impossible here, as far as I'm concerned. Where it's like, if you would have told me at the beginning of this generation, listen, Sony's going to put out this handheld PlayStation accessory, and it's going to be remote play only. It's going to be $200. Xbox is going to have their cheapest Xbox console priced at just $300. You're going to see in certain markets this accessory, this handheld accessory is going to outsell the series consoles. I would have told you you're fucking insane. I would have said there's not a chance in hell that could ever happen. And I know that people, again, keep getting very upset at me because they're like, why are you so focused on Xbox sales? Because it's like, I'm waiting to see them change, like, at this point. Two things here. Number one, the PS Portal, not nearly as hated as people thought it was going to be. Number two, people are choosing this thing over buying a whole nother console that is only $100 more. I don't know, man. That's that is a hell of a thing. That is a hell of a thing. I would have never thought that would have ever even been a possibility. But I think it really just kind of speaks to. See, this is what's so weird to me is if anything, it speaks to the disconnect of the internet. Like that's the thing that I'm noticing is the data and the actual like factual data that we are getting is at complete odds with the way people on the internet are speaking and the way it's being discussed. And that is like, there's just a massive disconnect where I just feel like everywhere I look, there's so much negativity for PlayStation. And I understand like a portion of it, but there's so much. And the PlayStation Portal in particular has had so much negativity. And then I just look at the data and the data is like, yeah, this thing's doing great. This thing's doing just fine. It's doing better than what Sony thought. It's outselling the Xbox in some regions. And then I just look back at the internet and these, the things people are saying. And it just goes to show the disconnect is what people are saying on the internet in these circles is not even remotely, pun intended, not even remotely in tune with the reality of what's happening right now. And it's very, very strange, Oh, and something else too. Apparently I have to mention this. So somebody called me out on my last video and they were like, MBG, when you talk about console sales, you're always quick to say that you understand why the Switch isn't selling well. And you explain that. You explain the Switch isn't selling well right now because they have a new gen console coming out. But you never explain the full story around Microsoft. You don't talk about that the Xbox revenue is really good and they have other areas where they're growing. And it's like, Yeah, but all those, but that's the thing, is like, we're talking about consoles. Again, see, this is where you see people, they come in and they get all in their feelings. We're like, well, you didn't say something good about Xbox. There's nothing good to be said about Xbox in the console space right now. If you want me to turn around and say, but that's okay because they're revenue-wise, they're doing good. You know, their Game Pass numbers are doing better, I guess, thanks to Starfield. Like, what does that have to do with the console? Nothing. It has, and so why is it that I'm explaining the situation with the Switch? Because the situation with the Switch has to do with the console. And that is old console selling badly because new console coming out. The situation with Xbox is not Xbox sell bad, Microsoft revenue good. They're not, they're two completely different things. So just wanted to mention that as well. Because again, I see the craziest shit come out of my comment sections. And it's just like, what are you people talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Jake Skew 27. Jake Skew 27 is keeping the membership train going today. He says, you know what? I want to drop a membership on this community. Jake, that is for you, my friend. Thank you so much. Jake Skew brings us up to 32 members on the day. We're climbing. We're climbing. We're not stopping. We're still going. Really appreciate that, Jake. Thank you. We have Chris B with the $5 chat, and he says, the Portal is a weird case of low expectations helping it out. Very smart of Sony not to do a large hype cycle. I agree, Chris. This is actually one really interesting aspect that I haven't been too focused on, but it makes complete sense, where Sony did not hype this thing at all. I think you're right. They were very, very wise. They were very wise to not do that, because the worst thing would have been for them to overhype this thing and people to end up feeling like, man, they are under delivering big time. But they did the opposite. They, kept expectations low, and they're seemingly over delivering, at least for the people who are excited for it. The weirdest thing to me is seeing people who are acting like they're confused that why am I seeing video clips of people and their games lagging and it's all pixelated? Because they have a bad internet connection. How could you not realize that? We have Exley 3000. Exley 3000. The legend drops 5 membership gifts, keeping this membership train going. And then Zombie Dragon follows it up and says, I want to pay it forward. I want to drop a membership gift. And then Hellbound 1981. These guys are going crazy. I need some W's flowing in the chat right now, because these guys are going crazy with the membership train. They just got us up to 43 members on the day. We are now 7 away from hitting a second goal of 50 members. 7 away. Incredible stuff. Guys, thank you so much. We're also 7 away from Boss. I mean, he's passed out, but I'm sure he would wake up again for some more treats. And Chris B does it. Chris B comes in strong with a 10 bomb. Gets us past 50 memberships. That's a second goal obliterated. That's over 50 new members that are going to gain access to the members lounge after today's stream. Just want to put that reminder out there. Anybody who's here today that is a member or was gifted a membership, make sure you stick around when the stream ends, because we're gonna head over to the members lounge. We're gonna hang out. Chris B, thank you so much, man. You guys are amazing. I see the W's flowing in the chat. I gotta give you a Jim Ryan.
We're gonna have the game,
and I gotta give you a Mark Cerny. That's 53 members on the day. You crushed another goal. And in just a moment here, I'm gonna give Boss some more snacks, because you guys did it. You guys are keeping Boss well fed here with these snacks, I gotta tell you. At the rate we're going, I'm gonna have to have some kind of cutoff. So let me update the member goal. We'll keep this conversation going. $53 members. You guys are crazy. Oops. And we are good to go. So look at that. sitting at 53 on the day. You guys are just obliterating these goals. And we have Jakey Stee coming in. It says here, let's celebrate. This is their first super on a live stream. Jakey Stee, thank you so much, man, saying we're leveling up. We definitely are, bro. We are. We're leveling up here. These guys are keeping the membership train going, reaching new levels. Love to see it, man. Love to see it. So Jakey Stee, thank you for that. It's very kind of you. We have a very generous community here. Chris B, just to get back to your super and close it out. I 100% agree. I think that Sony keeping expectations low, not having a large hype cycle, marketing cycle for it, I think has actually greatly benefited this new accessory and device. And I actually heard, and this is really weird to me, and I'm not like, I wanted to mention this, and this is really important. Apparently, Sony wants to actually track PlayStation Portal sales as like console sales, like as separate handheld console sales, not accessories. I don't know if they're counting it as PS5 sales. I don't think they are. Like, I think they're going to have their own, like just their own spot. And that's really interesting to me. If true, we're going to have to see if this is true, because it means we're going to get like actual data from it that tells us just how well or not well it's doing. But on top of that, this tells me they might have more plans in the works for the handheld side of things, where I think the PlayStation Portal name may end up being a kind of umbrella name for all PlayStation handhelds going forward. And this could be very significant, because the fact that Sony wants to track this tells me that this is data that they want to present to their investors and stuff like that. So I don't know, man. It's I'm almost beginning. I mean, let's not forget that internally, the PlayStation Portal was referred to as the Q Lite, I think is what they called it. The Q Lite, which implies that there's going to be like other versions of this. Now, obviously, the first thing people think of is maybe we're going to get like a version with an OLED screen. Yeah, the Q Lite handheld. Maybe we're going to get one with an OLED screen, but I think, yeah, we will eventually, but it tells me that, again, this is just maybe the beginning, where as we go further into this generation and even into the PlayStation 6 generation, we could start to see Sony get more creative with how they want to continue to approach the handheld market. Because I have no doubt they're going to want to keep the handheld market going, or stay involved in that market, because the handheld market is going to keep going, obviously, but I think they want to stay involved with it in a as meaningful, in the Q heavy actual hardware in this system. That's what I'm thinking. That honestly, that is exactly what I was thinking. I didn't want to say it, but because I feel like it maybe gets people's hopes up too high. But that is, yeah, the Q heavy, where it actually does have some hardware in it. I don't know if that's what they would call it though. But why else would you call it the Q Lite, the Q Pro? And we have Mighty Flea, guys. We have a new member joining us today. Mighty Flea says, you know what? I want to be part of this community. I want to partake in the members lounge. He decides to become a member. Welcome to greatness awaits, Mighty Flea. Guys, I want to see some W's in the chat. Let's welcome him aboard. Really appreciate it, buddy. He says, I'm not going to wait for a membership gift. I'm going to do it myself. Amazing to see. I appreciate that support, Mighty Flea. Welcome aboard, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. The Zombie Fanatic. He says, do you think Xbox will release a console next gen? With the laughing emoji. I do. Well, you know what? Hold on. Hold the phone here. So this is actually a really interesting thing I wanted to discuss with you guys. I alluded to it earlier, and I asked you to remind me. You know, like there was something a different conversation I wanted to have with you, and I wanted to wait until we got to this part of the stream. I'm going to read this super chat from Faberdot, and then we're going to get into it, because I have something I want to say here that I am convinced of. Like, I don't want to say 100% convinced, but I'm like 90% convinced that this is where we are headed. This is the road we are going down. And as each month, as each quarter, as each year goes by, it's going to become even more clear, to the point where it will become, I think, undeniable. But we have Faberdud here, and so I guess the zombie fanatic, I'll answer your question when we get in just a moment. Faberdud says, at this rate, boss will start gifting members himself to keep the goals crushed and the treats coming. Yeah, so thank you for reminding me. I almost forgot. Oh, do you guys see that shit? He's like, yup, I'm up. I'm ready for it. Let's go. Boss, you can thank these generous community members. I can't go overboard here. I can only give you a couple more. Oh no, that's too many. Don't go crazy, boss. Don't go crazy. There you go, boss. Once again, boss is over here be like, yo, what is the occasion? What is going on? What is going on? This is what's happening. Floof son. We have amazing community members. They killed it again. They got us to 54 members. So there you go. He just fucking ate it all already. Are you kidding me? Boss, bro. That's it, man. That's all I can't give any more than that. That's crazy. He is destroying them. He's like inhaling them, bro. He'll get fat. Well, that's it, man. That's it. Listen, if it makes you feel any better, I bought some new toys for Boss as well to help keep him in shape. Go ahead, Boss. Show everybody how active you are so they don't have to worry about you getting fat. Okay. Now he's going to make it seem like or you just chill there. That's fine. You could play with this when you want, but I'll have to get maybe a laser pointer or something. We have Herpy Derps. There he goes. Herpy Derps is coming in. Herpy Derps drops a membership as well. Another legend. Herpy Derps is doing it. Herpy Derps drops a 20 bomb. Herpy Derps. The legend returns. He drops 20 memberships on us, guys. Holy shit.
Holy shit.
He's doing it. You guys are going nuts today. I need to see W's in the chat for Herpy Derps. He's coming in and keeping this membership train just flying, man. Absolutely flying. Herpy Derps, thank you so much, man. That is incredibly kind of you. He did it. He just got us to another goal. He got us to another goal. Holy shit, boss. Chill, bro. Now he's going crazy down there. Herpy Derps, that's amazing, man. Thank you so much. Herpy Derps just got us to 75 members. He strategically dropped 21 gifts so we could crush another goal. That is amazing to see, man. I'm going to have to update this goal again. I see we have a couple more super chats. Thank you guys so much for all the love and all the support. I can't believe it, man. I can't believe how crazy you're going today. Let's update this here so you guys can see. Boss, look. I'm only doing this for Herpy Derps. We can't do this. I'm sorry. We're not going to be able to do this every time. They're going too crazy. But I'm going to do this for Herpy Derps. This is it. Boss, this is it. This is your cutoff. Even if we end up hitting 100 members, this is your cutoff. You can't go overboard. I can't go overboard here. All right? See, if it makes you guys feel better, I didn't give him any wet food today because of this. Because I didn't know how this was going to go down. So now when I go to feed him a little bit later and I give him some wet food, I'll give him just a little bit less than normal because he probably just had the equivalent of like, he probably had the cat equivalent of like two full bags of like chips. I imagined. But there you go, boss. That's from this community. He's going to need to do some cardio. Here. I want to really quick before I continue. I want to see if I can get him to jump up. I'm telling you, man, he knows when I'm streaming. He acts differently when I'm streaming. Come on, dude. Unless maybe he's too high right now from all the catnip because there's catnip in those streets. Come on. I'll just do this. I'll just do this, and I'm going to read. Let me see. Faber Dud, just to get back to what you're saying. Yeah, Boss is going to start gifting memberships himself, man. He looks a bit chunky and happy. You know, it's weird because, like, I don't think he's overweight. I think he's just a big cat because, like, when you see him, like, fully stretched out, he's really not fat. I think you guys just see him, like, curled up a lot. Dude, I'm so close to getting him to jump. I'm so close. I'm going to read these super chats in just a moment. I'm just trying to get him to jump up. Boss, come on, show him, man. Show him your skill. You're a hunter. Is he coming through here? I think you can kind of see it. He's right below me here trying to grab this thing. He's not fat. He's big boned, says actually. Oh, I wish you guys could see this. He's standing up. He's standing up, dragging this thing down. He looks like he's praying. Damn it. I can't get it on camera, though. All right, boss. You earned it. Sorry about that. I'm getting way too distracted by my cat here. I would move the camera, but the way it's set up, I can't actually... I would have to completely rearrange it. I can't actually angle it down. But he's chill now. He's chill. I got a couple of super chats. So, Herpy Derps, once again, thank you, man. You brought us up to 75 members. I see we have MRPD, member for 5 months. He says, PlayStation Portal's like an iPad. You don't need it, but get it just to flex. It's only good to use if you have a wired connection. Wi-Fi looks horrible. You know what's interesting is I don't even know if there were any tests done through like a Wi-Fi connection. By that I mean the PS5 being connected through Wi-Fi. Like it's I imagine there may be some like more obscure, but I would hope that anybody who is like actually reviewing this product has their PS5 connected, you know, through a hard wire with the Ethernet. Because yeah, if you do not have your PS5 connected that way, I really don't know why you would try to stream, you know, what's going on your PS5 to a portable device here. Because even if it was through your phone, like not having that wired connection is probably, I mean, I don't know. If you have really good internet and you have a strong Wi-Fi connection to your PS5, it might work. But I imagine you'd probably experience way more issues. Jake Skew, you're saying you have a friend who is a first-time viewer in this chat. Good stuff, man. Well, shout out to your friend. Appreciate you growing the community here, Jake Skew. We have Turbo Laz 1 with a $10 super chat, and he says, I'm an Xbox guy. Sony fans were toxic, but watched your honest channel. After Xbox got Activision Blizzard, I dropped boycott. Wife wanted to play Uncharted. I got a Black Friday PS5, and she loved Uncharted. Will there be a 5? Well, I appreciate that, man. So it seems like there is definitely an Uncharted game in development. There have been multiple job listings, and also I remember there was kind of talk that Naughty Dog was helping a studio slightly, like by not development wise, but kind of guiding. They didn't. I don't remember if they said which studio it was, but they're helping out with the game that they're working on. And I think it's very obvious, especially because they teased it in multiple ads. These live action advertisements that Sony puts out for the PS5. It's worth noting they have teased Uncharted multiple times. And between that, the job listings and what Naughty Dog said they're doing, it seems obvious that they are working on another Uncharted. They have the Uncharted movie that did way better than they thought it would. They have a sequel to that movie that's coming. Uncharted is one of the most popular PlayStation IPs. Like, Naughty Dog isn't going to work on it. That's the important thing to understand, TurboLaz and everybody else. When we see the next Uncharted, it's not going to be from Naughty Dog. And that might be a major red flag for people. I've speculated that it might be Blue Point Games working on it. It could be, if it's not Blue Point, I'm not exactly sure who else would be working on it. I think there was like some rumors that it was the visual arts team or something like that, but I don't think that they would work. Like, I think that they would support work on a new Uncharted game, but they wouldn't make it themselves. So I'm thinking it actually says, I pray Blue Point is not working on a new Uncharted. Yeah, it would be a little bit disappointing, but I'd be willing to give it a chance. But there is seemingly, based off of everything we could gather, there is seemingly a new Uncharted in the works, and we don't know anything about it, like if it's going to be a sequel or I don't know, like if it's going to star his daughter. We have to see. We have to see. But we have Jakey Stee coming in. Dude, you guys are going crazy today. Jakey Stee is keeping it going. He says, I want to become a member. No more waiting to see if I get gifted. I also want to become a member and support directly. Jake, I appreciate it. He says, I'm back, baby. Amazing stuff. Jakey, thank you so much for that, bud. Look forward. You now have access to the members lounge, man. So I hope to see you there. We'll be headed there after this stream. So yeah, Turbo Laz, I hope that answers your question, and I appreciate you letting me know that you're more of an Xbox fan, but you still tune into the channel. I get it, dude. I get it. You know, like I frustrate a lot of Xbox fan groups out there, and I'm not even trying to. But I guess that's just kind of comes with the territory a little bit. But it is always nice to know that there are Xbox fans that tune into the channel. And I think when they listen long enough, they realize that it's like, okay, look, I don't love Xbox. That's obvious. I'm not a big fan of them at all, but I don't hate them either. Like, I'm not rooting for their demise, as I think some people think I am. It's definitely not that. I see my biggest concern with Microsoft at this point in time. Frankly, my biggest concern, and I keep teasing this conversation, is that they are going to actually. Let me walk that back. It's not a concern. When I use the word concern, that makes it sound bad. My biggest, I guess, prediction with Microsoft is they're actually going to do something that will be potentially amazing. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. You guys keep supporting so much. I can't even get to this part of the conversation. But Planet Schlorpian with a $5 chat says, will Xbox go third party, or will they relentlessly and exclusively push Game Pass with no Xbox console? By the way, boss is tripping on Kitty LSD. I don't know where he got off to, and I'm a little concerned now, actually. Dude, yeah, I think he is tripping a little bit, because I just looked under my monitor, and he's just sitting there like staring at me. I'm like, whoa, man, relax, chill. Don't have a bad trip. He's coming down. You went to go detox. You know, I actually looked it up. Apparently, cats can't get addicted to catnip. I don't think they can like overdose on it either. That's what I read, but you know, can't necessarily believe everything you read on the internet. But Planet Schlorpian, I'm going to answer that question. Listen, that is a question I'm going to answer. You're not the only one that has been asking that. I'm going to read what Chris B says here, and then I'm going to answer that question directly, because it's a topic I want to discuss. But I also want to just give a shout out to a NSFW Nico. Thank you so much for the $1 donation, my friend. And it says it's your first time donating, so that's very kind of you. But Chris B, listen, based off of everything that I'm witnessing right now, I am convinced, I'm 90% convinced that Xbox is going to become a third-party publisher. I do believe this. I think that, again, if you just look at the signs, they're clear as day, where it's like, well, can Microsoft be a third-party publisher if they're still making consoles? I mean, they could do whatever they could, yes. Like, I know that sounds insane, but they absolutely could. It would be unprecedented. It would be the first of its kind, but Microsoft could do that. They could just say, we are becoming a major third-party publisher, and we're still going to produce consoles for. If for some reason you want to buy our console, it's there if you want it. Like, let me ask you, how far away are they from that right now? How far away are the only thing that's stopping them is just, I guess, this idea that the next the next Doom is going to be Xbox only. It's not coming to PlayStation 5 or the next Nintendo Switch. And yes, but why? I mean, really ask yourself that question. But why not? Because I guess the idea is, well, if we don't put this game on PlayStation 5 or the next Nintendo Switch, we're going to force people to go seek out Game Pass. But are you really forcing anybody? I asked this question because it's like, well, let me get this straight. If you release the next Doom as let's say Microsoft goes third-party publisher, and they announced the next Doom is multi-plat. You can get it on the PS5, you can get it on the next-gen Switch, you can get it on the Xbox, and you can get it through Game Pass. How does Microsoft lose by doing that? That's a serious question. How do they don't? They lose nothing. Instead, they get a great, what I assume will be a great game, day one into Game Pass, incentivizing people to subscribe to Game Pass. And if they don't want Game Pass, we'll take your $70. Sure. You want the Switch version? We'll take that 70. Okay, Nintendo will get like a 30% cut. PlayStation will get a 30% cut. Because that's the thing is, how many people, like, a game like Starfield, I understand. Because Starfield is supposed to be like this is, again, it's like a generational game. I can understand that. But when we talk about something like Call of Duty, everybody talks about how, dude, Call of Duty is going to drive so many Game Pass subscribers. Is it? I'm asking that question. Like, I'm asking this question to everybody who's listening. Is it? Is Call of Duty launching day one onto Game Pass? I guess next year's, I think it's been confirmed or it's been rumored it's going to be another Black Ops game. Call of Duty Black Ops, what is it, 5 or 6 at this point? It's going to drop day one onto Xbox Game Pass. Is it going to skyrocket Game Pass subscriber numbers? Are millions of people going to flock to Game Pass now and pay that $10? Or is it just going to produce, a little growth, modest growth? Honestly, the next year's Call of Duty sounds great. I want nothing to do with MW3 based off of everything I've seen, but the rumor about next year's Treyarch Call of Duty, it's set in the 90s, Gulf War, still continuing Black Ops. I'm like, oh, okay. 4 years of development? 4 years of development? I'm in. Yeah, 100%, dude. I loved Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. I did. I really enjoyed that game. So I've always liked Treyarch. I gotta admit, I'm actually pretty happy that Treyarch got 4 years of development, because it's like the biggest problem with MW3 is clearly that they just did not have enough time. Sledgehammer was clearly under pressure. Like, you guys got to get this shit ready to go like tomorrow. And you can't really blame them. But Treyarch, yeah, dude, having 4 years, I'm excited. The only thing that gets me a little bit nervous is that David Vonderhaar left Treyarch like earlier this year, and he's like kind of the mastermind behind, I guess, the secret sauce, if you will, of Treyarch's multiplayer gameplay. And I know that Jason Blundell left a while ago when he was in charge of zombies. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing, but I'm excited. But I got a little bit distracted there. But the reason why I'm asking this question, like, will Call of Duty actually drive a substantial amount of Game Pass subscribers? My gut reaction to that question, or my gut instinct, not reaction, but my instinctive, intuitive answer is yes, it will. I think it has to. I think that marketing push will be insanely aggressive, where it's in your fucking face, like Game Pass, Call of Duty, Game Pass, Call of Duty. The two are going to start to go together like peanut butter and jelly, right? Like that's the type of marketing push they're going to have. And I think it is going to lead to a lot of people just being like, well, I don't have to pay for, but that's the thing. See, that's the question we then have to ask ourselves. One of the major things Microsoft will have to push for Call of Duty. Now, this is where we will see a potentially unprecedented version of Microsoft when it comes to their games division, where you could say, well, Microsoft has already been doing that. Sony wants you to pay full price for their games, and they make it clear you're going to pay full price if you want our games. Microsoft, on the other hand, has actually leaned into don't buy our games, just subscribe. Don't buy our games, just subscribe. Now, they haven't actively said don't buy our games, but they're like one step away from saying that. They're conditioning their audience and their player base to subscribe to Game Pass for our games. That's what we want you to do, and stay subscribed. I really want to know if they're going to push that with Call of Duty, because Call of Duty is the best seller every year. Every single year, Call of Duty is the best selling game. Like, without fail. It would be wild, and I mean wild, if Microsoft actually tried to push people away from buying it and instead subscribing to Game Pass. And if they were to do that, I mean, it would show a new level of commitment to Game Pass that was not previously there, because you are actively asking people to stop buying a yearly best-selling game, and instead, please go subscribe. That would be pretty crazy. But, then again, if the way Microsoft might see it is, if we can convince a Call of Duty purchaser who was willing to pay $70 for the game to subscribe and then stay subscribed for 12 months, that's double the amount of money. That would nearly be like $130, $140. It's almost like 2 games at that point. We got double the revenue, essentially, double the amount of money from this customer who would have originally just bought the game. And that's not even counting like if they buy skins or the battle pass or anything. Now, the reason why I'm going so deep into this conversation is because I really think somebody mentioned earlier how, like, we don't have to talk about Josh mentioned it earlier, we don't have to talk about the ABK deal anymore. It's over. I agree. But man, is it going to be critical to pay attention to how Microsoft handles Activision going forward, because no one knows. No one knows. I don't even know if Microsoft knows. They might be still trying to figure it out. But I have to imagine they've been devising a plan this entire time. If we get ABK, what do we do? What do we do the first year that we own them? Well, the communication's going to change. First and foremost, the way Microsoft communicates with everybody is going to change, because they now own the biggest gaming publisher in the world. So their communication has to change. And that is where everything hinges on that. I am convinced at this point in time that they are going to go third party. I'm not saying they're going to announce next year, we're going third party. No, I don't think it's going to happen that quick. But somebody asked me earlier, do I think Microsoft's going to make a next-gen console? I don't know. I want to say they might give it one more shot. One more shot. Where they're like, look, we have Activision now. We have Call of Duty. We have all these games, but the fact that Call of Duty isn't exclusive and won't be for at least, assuming it'll ever be exclusive, I don't know, dude. I would not be entirely shocked if Microsoft says we're bowing out. We're not doing a next-gen console. You know why? Because we are now a third-party publisher and we have a subscription model that, sure, maybe you can't get Game Pass on PlayStation and Nintendo, but you can get it literally everywhere else. And so you know what? Maybe we can't convert PlayStation players to subscribers. Maybe we can't convert Nintendo players to subscribers. Maybe some of them. But the ones we can sell to them. That's exactly what they're doing with Call of Duty. That's exactly what they've been doing with Minecraft. The question is, what is stopping them from doing that with everything else? I don't see what is stopping them. But the fact that Starfield, you know, that is, to me, that is the great outlier here, where it's like, when we talk about all that documentation that came out, where like Microsoft got Bethesda, Phil said, you know, cut the PS5 version of Redfall, cut the PS5 version of Starfield, right? Are they doing that with Activision now? I don't know. I think Satya Nadella is going to overrule Phil Spencer here. I do. Not just Satya Nadella. I think the board of Microsoft is going to overrule Phil Spencer, in that I think what we saw executed with Bethesda was Phil's plan. We need to straighten something out here. Bethesda as an acquisition does not even remotely compare to Activision Blizzard. Not even in the same ballpark. 7 billion, 68 billion, not even. They're not remotely close to one another. What I think has happened here is, I think Bethesda's acquisition, Phil was still the lead on that. As in, like, and what I mean by that is, I think Satya Nadella and the board of Microsoft basically told Phil, you do what you want. You do what you think is best. And that's what Phil did. Phil said, we'll take it on a case-by-case basis, and that's what he did, mostly. But now we seem to understand that, okay, well, Starfield was exclusive, Redfall, but now they have Activision Blizzard. And I find it very interesting and very telling that one of the first things Microsoft investors here during their investors call, after Activision was finally purchased and it went through, is Satya Nadella saying, we are much more focused on the publishing side of things now. The publishing and acquisition side. Notice how we're not getting any interviews whatsoever from Phil talking about exclusivity. They're not letting Phil talk. They let him talk one time, which was right after, and you know, they kept it pretty basic, where it's like, yeah, we're going to see what we can do with older IP, and you know, it was just very, like, anytime anybody tried to pry about the future, he just seemed to, like, again, not really acknowledge it and say, we'll talk about it next year. There's a lot of work to be done. I could be totally wrong here, just to be clear. But the reason why I'm talking about this so much is because if Microsoft actually goes third party, it would be awesome, first off, I think, for everybody. But it would be, in terms of how that would impact Sony's decision making, it would be fucking wild. Like, at that point, anything that I could have predicted Sony would do or should do completely changes. And that's why this is such a big deal. Because right now, whether Xbox fans want to admit it or not, and it's not a bad thing, but I know that there are a lot of Xbox fans that just, they don't want to consider this because they think it's like a bad thing. I don't see it as a bad thing. And no, That's the thing. You're saying MBG doesn't want competition. That would be my biggest concern is if Microsoft went third party, that means no more console competition, which I said I was against earlier, which I am. But at the same time, the prospect of kind of having this unification where it's like, holy shit, you're telling me I can play PlayStation exclusives and Xbox exclusives, in the same place. It's like, that's pretty tantalizing. You're saying I'm scared. Yeah, man, let me tell you, I'm terrified. Oh, man. No, honestly, dude, Sony could announce tomorrow that they have to, like, fucking shut down a studio or two. And I'd be like, well, can't say I'm totally shocked. Sony's in a strong position right now, but they have clearly some serious issues they're working on behind the scenes with management. They need a new CEO. Like, it's not a matter of being scared, dude. It's Microsoft. Listen, we talked about how there was like that article that came out where it's like Microsoft is set to leapfrog Sony potentially in revenue. Like, this is where I don't know that people fully understand what we might be looking at right now. How did Microsoft leapfrog Sony in revenue? By paying $68 billion for the world's biggest publisher. I don't think Microsoft is really viewing Sony the same way that they were previously. I think Microsoft may actually see themselves. I don't think it's so much about viewing themselves as, oh, we're in competition with Sony. I think Microsoft sees a very different future for the gaming landscape, a future where major players like Tencent, Amazon, Netflix, Meta, all these guys. And yeah, Sony does view it this way too, but I'm just saying Microsoft, the difference between Sony and Microsoft is Microsoft can get themselves in a better position in terms of just kind of being able to actually actively shift the landscape, like aggressively, to suit to kind of, I guess, suit their needs or their wants more so than Sony can. Sony has to be more liberal, or not, sorry, wrong word, more conservative about what they choose to do because they just don't have the type of capital, I mean, they could if they want it, but if it backfired on them, it would, I mean, again, it could end their entire fucking business if they went to that level or tried to. Microsoft is just in a different position where they have a different type of power where they can shift a landscape entirely and mold it to what they want it to be. It doesn't mean that Sony or Nintendo or others have to follow, but that's exactly what they're doing. And that's why I'm saying, like, this idea that they still want to play a game of exclusivity, now that they have Activision Blizzard, it's just like, I mean, maybe that's the direction you go in, but I really think that what is going to happen is investors are going to see a lot of money being left on the table. I think that they're going to see, holy shit, Call of Duty is increasing Game Pass numbers. It's selling great on Xbox. It's selling great on PlayStation. It's selling great on the Switch. Why the fuck are we doing exclusives? I really think that's where the board of Microsoft already is. And I think Phil might have no choice, and Matt Booty and everybody else, to just get on board with, guys, we're a publisher now. Like, we are a publisher now. That's the thing. When Phil Spencer got welcomed in to the, into the family that is the board of Microsoft, you're at the big boy table now. There's a lot of other very powerful people running the company that is Microsoft that are gonna, they're gonna have to make decisions. And I'm dying to know if this is the plan for Microsoft, because if it is, it changes literally everything. Everything we thought we knew is out the window. Everything that I could have predicted with Sony is now out the window. And you want to talk about a truly unprecedented, and I guess you could say unclear future. The most unclear future to me is the one where Microsoft goes third party and no longer participates in console sales, because I don't know. It could be great. It could be horrible. It could be somewhere in the middle. It could be all over the place. The only thing I do know is that if Microsoft does have a next generation Xbox console and they really try to push, because here's the idea of a next gen Xbox console, they have to market it. They have to come up with it. They have to market it. They have to consider Sony. They have to consider Nintendo, and they have to contend with that. And when I look at what they're doing right now, it's like they're not doing either of those things. Like, dude, Microsoft does not give a shit about what Sony and Nintendo are doing in the console space, like, at all. And that, like, I just don't. I've seen this happen before. I've witnessed this under Microsoft in the hardware space, where this exact same thing happened with not just Windows Phone, but also with like their Surface line, where it's like the Surface line was only supported because they knew that like it just makes them look better, where it's like, we are a software company, but we know we have our own line of hardware for those enthusiast Microsoft fans that want it. But we know that that's not where the majority of people are going to interact with Microsoft services. I've literally watched this happen, and I don't even know, is Surface still a thing today? I'm assuming it is. But if it is, it's like it's really not at the forefront. Microsoft is, again, they basically are third party. That's what they do. That's what they are. And I just think people are kind of in la la land if they think that, like, look at Microsoft as a company as a whole. Look at how they operate outside of the Xbox brand. Their main goal is, we just want to be everywhere. That's it. That's the only goal. We want to be everywhere on everything, period. Why do people think that that same mentality isn't going to, if it hasn't already, take over the Xbox division and brand? Why wouldn't it? So here's what I'll say. Well, it's not a prediction, but my stance right now is one of two things is going to happen, and I think that's obvious. Either Microsoft is going to have a next-gen Xbox, or they're not. And if they do have a next-gen Xbox, that tells me something pretty important, and that is, this is their final push. Like, this is the sink or swim, make or break decision making. Like, we're either going to stay in this market or we are not. And it will be either things will turn around, and because I think a lot of people thought the Series X was that. You know, we look back at those leaked emails where like Phil was bragging to Satya Nadella about, I feel really good about the Series X. I see what Sony has. We're in a great position. And it's like, I mean, fuck, man. Like, now you're beaten to a pulp. So I guess I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't shock me if Satya turns to Phil and is like, you told me that the console was going to do great this time around, and we're getting fucking obliterated. Why should we do this again? Why should I turn to the investors and tell them we're going to launch another console and we're going to, you know, I'll tell you this. The one main thing that could probably justify another Xbox console generation to compete with Sony and Nintendo is Game Pass. That could do it. I'm sure somebody at Microsoft would be able to convince the higher ups that, like, look, and maybe it would be Phil, like, this is a great avenue for people to subscribe to Game Pass. But these consoles, this is why I'm saying, like, people have continued to say that, like, console sales don't matter. Console sales don't matter. It's like, they do. They absolutely do. To a company like Microsoft, Microsoft can decide if they matter or not. If they are not selling any units and Microsoft says, well, that doesn't matter, then it also doesn't matter if they stop producing it. You see what I'm saying? Like, if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But in terms of the traditional competitive aspect of the console space, it absolutely matters a lot. Like, it means everything. I remember when the Wii U was failing so bad, everybody was thinking, "Holy shit, Nintendo's going to have to go third party." Not even because they want to, but because they have to. And they made a comeback, and so could Microsoft. But it's like the difference even between Nintendo and Microsoft in this situation is it almost seems like it benefits Microsoft more based on their own vision to go third party than it does to even waste time with consoles. But for all I know, all of this could hinge on whether or not Sony would allow Game Pass. And I don't think they would. I don't think there's anything, even if Microsoft said we're leaving the console space, Sony, can we put Game Pass? I don't think Sony would be like, yes. I think they'd be like, no. Maybe they would. I don't know. It's a possibility. I mean, well, if Microsoft was selling their games on Sony's platforms, maybe they would. Maybe they'd say, well, you guys aren't selling consoles anymore. You're selling your games on the PlayStation Store. Sure, I guess, but I don't know. I'm just really fascinated in seeing how this unfolds because, dude, like, there's a reason why Microsoft focuses so aggressively on these bigger games, like, the service games, Minecraft, Call of Duty, even with the service games underneath Bethesda. There's a reason why they are like, yeah, we need to keep these everywhere. I just don't know what is stopping. I just don't know what's stopping them. I really don't know. That's the thing I can't figure out right now. Is I can understand why Sony says we don't put Spider-Man 2 on Xbox. We don't put it on Nintendo. We don't even put it on PC. I can understand that because Sony says we are trying to sell consoles. We are selling consoles. We're selling them well, and we have a closed-off ecosystem, mostly a closed-off ecosystem. I don't understand why Microsoft, like, they don't have a closed-off ecosystem. They have quite the opposite, where it's like, you can buy Starfield on Steam, and you did. And you did buy it on Steam. And the majority of our sales came from Steam. That's not owned by Microsoft. What is, like, I just don't understand. What is stopping them from just saying, and you can also buy it on PlayStation or Nintendo if you want? Well, the answer to that question might simply be, well, guess what? Steam is on PC, and on PC is also Game Pass. So the PlayStation Store, yeah, sure, we'll sell Starfield on the PlayStation Store, but is Game Pass on PlayStation? I don't know. But I know I'm going on here. I know. You're saying I'm yapping at this point. I know. I'm just going on and on. I'm going to read these super chats. I'll kind of put a bow on this discussion, though, because I am starting to kind of, if I haven't already, go out in fucking space. To put a bow on this, I do think they're going to go third party. I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. I think they could still come out next generation with another console, have some exclusives, but I think that all signs point to the road Microsoft is on right now is to eventually become a major, massive, if not the biggest third-party publisher in the world. If Microsoft effectively becomes the biggest third-party publisher in the world, they could actually reach a point, and I know this may sound fucking crazy, but it's true. They could reach a point where they might realize maybe we don't even need Game Pass that much because we have so many studios, so much IP. We are bigger than EA significantly. We are the gaming industry. Like, we are a massive, if not the biggest part of the gaming industry. What else do we need? And that's the crazy realization that Microsoft may end up having, is that if they continue to acquire like they plan to, they might realize we don't need any of this. We don't need to rely on a sub-service. We don't need to rely on consoles. We just need to fucking make games, and we just rake in that revenue, baby. That's all we got to do. I really think that is because if you want to talk bigger picture thinking, that's what Satya Nadella is thinking. That's what the investors are thinking. They're not thinking about exclusivity. They're not thinking about doing better than Sony. They're just thinking about, again, leapfrogging Sony and everybody else along the way, and we want to make all the money. How do you make all the money? You buy all the things that make all the money, and then you sell it the same way, but now you collect that money. That's how you make the most money. So we'll see. We'll see where it all goes, but that's what I'm thinking. Saying Microsoft's plan was being a platform holder. Yeah, I don't, and that's a common. So I do want to speak to that, Irfan, real quick before I read these chats. That is true, and that's where the plan always starts. I don't know if anybody who's followed Microsoft realizes, but that's where it always starts. It's about being a platform holder, but I don't know, man. Like we have seen instances where Microsoft has foregone being a platform holder and being more of just, again, like a software based company that has their software on everything, everywhere. More like there have been instances where they put more of a focus on that than actually being a platform holder. Now, my big question here is if Microsoft really does go down this route, what does that mean for Sony? Well, think about it. On the Sony side of things, that would mean no more competition for Microsoft. Microsoft is actually not your competition. They're your biggest partner. Now that's a mind fuck right there. Microsoft is no longer your competition. They're your biggest partner because now they're selling all of their games on your platform, and they're raking in 70% of that. You're getting 30%. And that's that. And they're doing just fine with Game Pass not being on PlayStation. Microsoft is winning in all directions. Sony is kind of winning in that sense where it's like, okay, well, we're not losing anything. So what does that mean? Well, it means Sony can just continue to sell consoles, and the only thing they really got to worry about is Nintendo. Here's another question. What does Microsoft have to worry about? I think I'm asking the important questions here. What Microsoft has to worry about? Not Sony, bro. Microsoft doesn't have to fucking worry about Sony or Nintendo. What Microsoft has to worry about is, when's Tencent going to try to buy EA? When's Apple going to try to buy EA? Do you see what I'm saying? You see, this is where we are headed. It is clear as day. It is clear as day, man. This is where we are headed. So, I guess this is all to say that I see a pretty bright future for Microsoft and Sony, dude. I do. Like, I could actually see a bright future to where Sony and Microsoft are actually teaming up in more ways than one to make sure that they can both, especially in Sony's case, like they can both just continue to operate as they want to operate and not have to necessarily worry about, major, other major tech companies breaking in and saying, well, we're going to establish ourselves now. Let's not forget that time that Phil Spencer said, hey, I'm a madman. I know I am. Dude, the amount of people listening to this are probably like, what the fuck, dude? What are you talking about? But listen, don't take my word for it. Remember that time Phil said, we don't really view Sony and Nintendo as competition. We view mainly the likes of Facebook, Amazon, those are our Google, those are our competitors. That came from Phil himself. So for anybody who thinks I'm really that crazy or out there in space talking about, I'm really not. The only question we need to truly have answered at this point is what Microsoft plans to do with Activision Blizzard, because what Microsoft did with Bethesda made it clear that they want to hurt Sony. And that's fine. Like, that is competition, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they did make it clear, like, Starfield not going to PlayStation, we want that. We want to take that from you. We did. And it's going to hurt you. Maybe not dramatically, but it's definitely not going to help you. It would have helped you if we released it on PS5. It would have helped us too, maybe, sales-wise. But we want this, and we're taking it from you. If I would be shocked. Really. Maybe I'd be a fool for being shocked, but I would be shocked if when we hear from Microsoft next year in 2024, they actually make it clear that like, and we're taking Activision Blizzard from you, like their games, except for Call of Duty as well, only for the fact that it's like, oh shit, like, dude, like at that point, it would mean that there is no future where Sony and Microsoft can ever, I don't know, I don't want to say like team up, but just no future where they can ever really. Okay, no, I'll get it in a minute. That's fine. Thanks. There's no future where they can team up. Well, I don't know what other terminology to use to team up and essentially kind of thwart off like outer entities that have yet to really, yeah, I guess coexist would be a better term to use. Yeah, cooperate, whatever you want to, whatever term you want to use, but it will, if Microsoft continues to want to not make an enemy, but keep Sony as an enemy, as a competitive enemy, that's going to be, it's only going to get more awkward as we go further down, because the more moves we see Microsoft make and the more moves we see Sony make, they're just walking two different paths. Like there's just no way around it. They're not doing the same things. They're not. They're both making video games, but that's about it. That's the only thing that they're doing. Yes, they both have a storefront, but it just seems clear that like, I don't know. It just seems clear to me that the whole storefront idea for Microsoft automatically doesn't make as much sense because of their own subscription service. So that's why I'm saying I don't know how they could continue to view each other as true competitors when right now one company is putting out exclusive games, focused on selling a console, and has a couple of extra bells and whistles with PS Plus and, hardware like the DualSense Edge and the Portal. Sure. And, partnerships. And the other is just like, we're buying publishers and we're going to become one of the biggest powerhouse publishers in the world. It's just like they're just two different things, man. From what I can tell, they're just operating on two different planes, and that's why it's just strange to kind of continue to talk about Microsoft and Sony as if like, yeah, Microsoft wants to crush Sony. It's like, well, I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know, man. At this, let's all be one big happy family. I don't think it'll be like that, to be clear. Like, I don't think it'll be like kumbaya, everybody's holding hands. No, I just mean like, if the future really is going to be what Microsoft believes it is in the gaming industry, then Sony is not going to be nearly as big of a threat as I think people think Microsoft thinks they will be, if that makes sense. I think Sony will be a threat to an extent, but I don't know. We'll see, man. At the end of the day, it's all speculation. I'm just giving my best speculation on where I see this stuff headed, because we went from, at the beginning of this generation, we went from Microsoft talking about their 12 teraflop console and the fans rallying behind that, talking about games like Hellblade 2, rallying behind that, and we went from, in 2020, having serious conversations about how, man, Microsoft might really stick it to Sony this time. I don't know. Mark Cerny said the PS5 is only 10 T-flops. Seems like Microsoft might really make that comeback, and they didn't. We went from that to, in a matter of just 3 years, Microsoft doesn't market their console. They don't even really talk about it anymore. They now own 2 publishers, one of which is the biggest in the industry. Game Pass is something that they're clearly still very focused on, and that's it. It's like Xbox has made a complete 180 in a matter of 3 years, and that's why I think it's insane that anybody can sit here and say like confidently like, "Oh no, there's no way they would become a third-party publisher." Like, really? You think there's no way? You think there's no chance? You don't think in the next 4 years that could be a possibility? Okay. Because I'll tell you what, if somebody said in 2020, yeah, 12 T flops, we got a 12 T flop monster with the Series X, and then wait until you see Microsoft buy Activision Blizzard, you would have been laughed at. People would have laughed at you and said, "You're fucking out of your mind. No one's ever going to buy Activision Blizzard. Are you kidding me? That's impossible." Do you know how many people would have told you that's impossible? They would have told you that is impossible. Well, believe it, because here we are. Xbox is more of a publisher now than anything. I'm waiting for that reality to start dawning on more people, because I think it's gonna take more time. But yes, that is the reality. Xbox is a publisher now. Yes, they have a subscription service in Game Pass. Yes, they have their own platform. They are a publisher. They are a publisher first and foremost, and it'll be really interesting. What did they publish? It's not what, well, they have published many things, but it's what they're going to be publishing in the next 5 to 8 years that it's going to be fucking crazy. They're going to have a lot. And my whole question with all of this is, see, that's the thing. Again, people will say, why are you so focused on Microsoft? Because, dude, let's face it. What Sony decides to do, I know PlayStation fans don't want to hear this, but there is some truth to it. I'm not saying it's definitive, but there is some truth to it, and I think it's okay. It's a, I don't say it's necessarily a good thing, but it's a necessary thing. What Microsoft decides to do is going to impact Sony's decision making. There's just no, and if you need proof of that, just look at what happened the past 3 years. Look at how many studios Sony bought. They bought more studios in 3 years than they did in the past like decade or longer. And let me tell you, that was not because Sony wanted to. It was because they looked around and said, "Oh shit. Okay, this is happening. We need to get a move on, and we need to get some of these deals done." PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. Why was PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium made? Was it because Sony just really wanted to do it? No. It's because they had to. So it's not that Microsoft isn't competing with Sony. The Xbox console isn't competing with the PS5. Yes, Microsoft is competing with Sony. And no matter what anybody says, I don't care if you're the most hardcore of hardcore PlayStation fanboy, what Sony will do in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be determined to an extent, not fully, but to an extent, by what Microsoft chooses to do. And me talking about Microsoft going third party is a great example of just how crazy things could actually get and how much PlayStation could change or not change. Everybody says Sony should, not everybody, but a lot of people talk about Sony should buy a publisher. They need to. I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of people say Sony needs to buy a publisher to survive, to compete. What if, just what if, maybe Sony isn't rushing to buy a publisher because they're looking at Microsoft and they're thinking, what are the chances they go third party in the next 5 to 8 years? And we don't have to buy a publisher. We'll just end up selling their games on our storefront. I'll tell you, there's somebody sitting there saying, well, it's not a guarantee, but probably a decent chance. So it begs the question, how risky would it be? What would be more risky? That's the question. What would be more risky? For Sony to sit back and say, we're not going to buy a publisher. We're pretty sure Microsoft's going to become a third-party publisher, and we're not really going to have to compete in that space with them. We'll leave that to the likes of Tencent and Amazon and Google, so on and so forth. Is that more risky than Sony saying we need to buy a publisher, even if it's like, it's not that we can't afford it, but we're going to feel it a lot more. Like if we spend $10 billion on a publisher, $15 billion on a publisher, like we are taking a huge risk. What is riskier? I don't know. I leave that to Sony. They have to make that decision, but that's kind of where we are right now. You're saying they're having great results. They don't need to take any risk, make any risky moves. Not right now. You're right. They don't have to do anything right now. They don't. But the clock is ticking and consolidation is moving forward. And Sony, I mean, at the very least, Hiroki Totoki, their president, said we don't want to get left behind. So you really have to ask yourself. Anyway, I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting. The Zombie Fanatic says, you feel it was inevitable for games to go all digital. Listen, man, I'm just, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. I don't care if it's true. I'm not going to accept it. We cannot just allow a all digital future. You just can't. You just can't do it, because believe me when I tell you, man, going all digital, I don't think people quite understand how much power you're giving the content holders. Like they can censor shit at will and you would never know. They can alter things, they can snap things out of existence. I mean, you get, like, all digital gives full control, and I think it would be very foolish to think that if you give total control to a platform holder, they're only going to do good things. You're so far off the mark. I kind of feel sorry for it. It's like, no, they're going to do horrible things, and they're going to do it in the name of, well, we can do it, and there's nothing you can do about it. What are you going to do? You're going to leave? Where are you going to go? You gave us the power. You're going to go buy a physical copy? Pfft. No, you're not, because it doesn't exist. So we need to continue to support physical media, not just in games, as far as we can. I mean, maybe it's too late for music. I don't know. Saying, look at what they do with gatekeeping online play. It would get worse, man. It's. I mean, again, maybe people don't care, and that might be. I think that's the hard truth: is the majority of people don't care. I think the majority of people just don't care if it's like, look, listen, I don't care if we go all digital. I don't care if they want to fucking censor. I don't care about any of that. I just want to watch my shit conveniently. I want to play my shit conveniently. I think that's unfortunately the hard truth of the majority. And you can't really do much to fight that, you know? I'm going to buy the Oppenheimer 4K HD Blu-ray. I think I should. Yes. Vinyl marches on. MBG, just because Microsoft leaves console doesn't mean they have to publish on PlayStation. Microsoft can buy Capcom and Square Enix and publish on Nintendo and Windows platform, no more PlayStation. But Vex, see, the thing about what you're saying is that insinuates that Microsoft wants to end Sony. If you end PlayStation, you're also ending the biggest revenue stream for your biggest IP, Call of Duty. Do you see what I'm saying? And Minecraft as well. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, at this point in time, people don't seem to realize that, dude, Sony is one of Microsoft's biggest fucking partners. Maybe not directly, but indirectly. Like, they're about to make so much of their money from the PlayStation platform, dude. Like, the biggest question, this is still why I ask about Starfield, where it's like, Starfield had to have been a test, man. It had to have been, because it's like, obviously Redfall wasn't going to do shit for Game Pass. Like, even if it was a successful game, it's not like that was going to be the game that, like, boom, you know, like, look at what we just achieved. It's with Redfall. I'm sorry. That actually came out not intentional. Redfall was not meant to be that, even if it was a good game. It just wasn't going to be that. But Starfield, on the other hand, was. I read it in the chat, and I said it. Starfield was supposed to be that game, and that's why I feel like there was such a big push behind it. And it's like, it's a test, man. We're gonna see, because you cannot help but think that Microsoft has to be sitting there and thinking, how many more full price copies of this game could we have sold? Because we see how well it sold on Steam, right? Look at how well Starfield sold on Steam. What else would we have got if we just put it on PS5? Another question is, how many PlayStation players went to subscribe to Game Pass for this, or bought an Xbox? Well, clearly, hardly anybody bought an Xbox. So that means PlayStation players may have just went to PC. Now, maybe that's the angle here. Okay, you may have went to PC and got it through Steam, which isn't us directly. You're still on PC, right? You're still on Windows. So it's like, well, fuck. I mean, is that the play here? If that's the play, well, that's where Sony might, you know, that might be why Microsoft, you know, so again, you mentioned, like, just don't publish on PlayStation. That might be why, because it's like, well, even if we can't get your players to buy an Xbox, we could at least get them to go to Windows, to go to PC, right? Even if we can't get them to subscribe to Game Pass. But I don't know. That's these. You're talking about numbers and data that we could only pray to learn about one day. I have no idea how many PlayStation players decided they're gonna go to hello, Leia. They're gonna go to Xbox now, or go to PC now to play Starfield. I'm sure there were some, but how many? 1 million? 3 million? 5 million? 10 million? No, certainly not 10 million. Certainly not 5 million. Honestly, that number is probably way fucking lower than we could have ever imagined. I actually think at this point, what Microsoft may have done, and I do not mean this to shit on Microsoft, because I'm not even shitting on Microsoft. I'm not shitting on anybody, but I'm not saying this to shit on Starfield or to shit on Bethesda. But I think what Microsoft may have done by saying we're not releasing this game on PS5 is just basically exiling PlayStation players and just making it so that it turns out they didn't come to us still. Like, we told them we're not giving you this game that would have probably appealed to a good chunk of you, and we thought that they would have came to us, but they didn't. I could be wrong, but it's just like, I almost wonder if that's the situation that occurred, where maybe Microsoft going forward might rethink that strategy of, okay, we might not be able to get PlayStation players to move. Like, no matter what we do. We can't make Call of Duty exclusive. Like, oh, we fucking made Crash Bandicoot exclusive? That's going to bring over the 10 million PlayStation players we're looking to get? Yeah, I don't think so. Guitar Hero, on the other hand. I'm just kidding, of course. But I guess I'm just saying, like, if Starfield couldn't do it, Call of Duty literally isn't allowed to do it, then what the fuck will? Doom? Doom's not going to do it. And that's no offense to Doom, but it's just not. So you just have to question, at what point is it just like, fuck, man, maybe we should have just released Starfield on PlayStation and collected those fucking sales. By the way, how much did Starfield sell? I just remember seeing something like 6 million players or something like that. Have they updated us since? I don't know. Yeah, The Elder Scrolls 6 will give us our answer. Now, that's not going to be for a long time. But don't be shocked, man. Like, don't be shocked if The Elder Scrolls 6 is going to release on PS5. And you know why they would release it on PS5? Because I said, yeah, we tried that with Starfield. Didn't really work the way we thought. It would just be, we would literally make more money doing it this way. So I don't know. 10 million players in 1 week? Okay. So if I were to guess 10 million players in 1 week, I would assume that like at least 1 to 2, maybe 3, and 3 I think is pushing it, of those players were people who invested in PlayStation but decided like they would have bought the game on PlayStation if it released, but it wasn't. So they're like, okay, I'll go to PC or I'll go to maybe Xbox. That's my guess. Or I'll go to Game Pass. We got Gooch here saying Microsoft was never about creating the Windows/iOS GUI was stolen from Xerox. Yeah, I've heard about that. I mean, there's like that famous Steve Jobs quote where he said like the biggest problem with Microsoft is they're boring. Like they don't know how to create. Or maybe somebody can give me the quote. I know he said something along those lines. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that from a business perspective. Like Microsoft is not here to impress anybody. Yeah, he said they have no taste. Microsoft isn't here to impress anybody. They're here to make money and run an efficient business. And I don't have any problems with that. But that's why I just kind of think that like when you look at Microsoft's bigger picture here, their bigger picture is not, it's obviously not selling consoles, but I don't even know that it's about, I think Microsoft's biggest, see, here's what I think their secret is. You ready? And this is why I think Sony just can't operate in the same way. I think Microsoft's biggest secret is it's, you know the saying like, keep your friends close, your enemies closer. I think that's Microsoft's secret. Is it's like we want to infect everything. We want to be everywhere in any way we can. So this platform holder that was once our enemy, how can we make them our friend? Because if we make them our friend, well, then we make some of their money. And if we can do that with everybody, then how much money could we make? I mean, it's not hard to follow that logic. You know, yeah, Microsoft is Agent Smith. It's so I'm telling you, man, I want to see that future because holy shit, that would be crazy. Listen, the reason why I want to see a future where Microsoft is the biggest third-party publisher in the world and they no longer really care about their own platform because they're just too busy raking in too much money, like an infinite amount of money, is because I just want to see like what are the conversations like then? You know, what are the conversations? Because you know what the conversations are then? You're gonna have PlayStation fanboys talking about how they're excited to buy Hellblade 3 on their PlayStation 6. And you have Xbox fans freaking out about the next version of Halo that is making a comeback. It's finally, you know, they actually really did it right this time, guys. Like at launch, we didn't have to wait. And you know, you have Xbox fans excited to play I don't know, man, like Ghost of Tsushima 3 and Halo 7 or whatever, I guess it would be 7 at that point, are going to release in the same week on the PlayStation 6 or 7 or some shit. Like, that is the future we would be looking at, and that would be fucking wild. That would be a wild future, man. And fuck, by that point, you could even see it get to a point where, like, I don't know, Sony might embrace PC even more. You got PlayStation fans be like, yo, I can't wait to play The Last of Us Factions on my PC. Where I'm going to, you know, I don't know. It would be a wild future. It would be. All right, let's see. We got Ice Rezo saying here, Microsoft makes more money from gaming through Acer, Windows, and Xbox. They're only missing revenue from mobile. ABK benefits all divisions. Yeah, that's again, they are going to have King now. So they got their mobile sec. This is why I'm saying, like, this is why Sony look for the biggest thing that Sony has to fear right now is their future's not secure. In the same way that maybe Microsoft's is, or the same way that Nintendo's is. And I know that sounds like that's a statement that, again, people who, because I love PlayStation, but I know it's a statement that a lot of people who love PlayStation, they don't want to hear it, but it's just the truth. It is. And it's not even Sony's fault necessarily. It's just the way the market is going, where it's like somebody might say, no, Sony's future is secure. Look at their studios. Sony knows how to make great single-player games, and they sell millions of copies of those single-player games. They're fine. Their console's selling great, and these are all factual, true things, and it is great. But it's very clear that is becoming more volatile and more risky as time goes on, where how long until Sony invests an insane amount of money into a massive single-player game that just fucking flops? What then? Because I'll tell you right now, people always say, like, I want to see more risk from Sony. I want to see more risk from Sony. I do too, but I don't think people quite understand, like, even Days Gone, which is arguably... Days Gone was probably the closest thing to a flop that we've seen from Sony Studios, right? But it didn't flop. Like, that game sold over like 10 million copies. That game was a financial success, no doubt about it. But it flopped in Sony's eyes anyway, in terms of reviews. And I think what scared Sony is they thought, fuck, man, like, the game now has a kind of stink on it. I hate to put it that way, but it does, where it's like it didn't review well. So maybe that could actually hurt sales of the sequel, you know? And they didn't want to risk that. Yeah, the Order 1886 is another great example. And you could tell, like, Sony, if they get any feeling that this game won't be a major hit, we can't take that risk. And I know people are like, dude, they need to start taking those risks. I get that, but I don't think people who are advocating for that quite understand, like, do you know how that's going to impact the bottom line of the PlayStation business? And they might say, I don't care. It's like, well, I'm not saying you need to care, but it's like, if you want to see PlayStation grow and continue to make these investments and take these risks, it just takes one failure, like one big failure, to fucking shake the foundation of this business model. Because Sony does not have a live service game to fall back on. They do not have a major third-party publisher that they just purchased like ABK. They do not have a Mario or a Zelda to, if the shit goes wrong with their new IP, well, at least we got Mario and Zelda. They don't have that. They have things that are somewhat close to that, like we still have God of War, we have Horizon, we have Spider-Man, and yes, these are all things that will help them. But to say that God of War and Horizon, oh, well, that's the equivalent of, Nintendo's Mario and Zelda. No, it's not. It's just not. That's not Pokemon. Sony doesn't have Pokemon. Sony doesn't have anything close to Pokemon. And they don't have anything close to ABK either. So it begs the question, well, what does Sony have? Well, Sony has their studios. They have their own IP. They have Spider-Man. All they have left is Spider-Man. They have that. But it's so clear that, dude, you look at where things are going. We have Temtem. We do. And I'm not and this is not doom and gloom for PlayStation, because who knows what they could be planning. Trust me, like, they could make a big move themselves that could change all of this. But this is the position that Sony, like, they have Ghost of Tsushima. You're right, they do. But Ghost of Tsushima is not going to compete with Activision Blizzard alone. As much as I would love to say Ghost of Tsushima can take on all of Activision Blizzard, no. It's not comparable in the least, not even remotely. Okay, well, can Ghost of Tsushima, how does it stack up against, again, like Mario, Zelda, Pokemon? It does not. It's a great game, and I want to see it do even better, but it does not. So at that point, you have to just kind of realize that Sony their feet are not planted firmly on the ground right now. They're not. They're kind of they're in an unstable place where every decision they make from now until the end of the generation especially is going to be of the utmost importance, where it's like, look, this is what Microsoft's doing. Microsoft is listen, it's clear to me, and I could be wrong, but after really sitting back and thinking about it and looking, Microsoft is fine. Like they're good. I mean, there is the chance Call of Duty could go to shit, right? And their studios could implode. And this could happen, but the Activision Blizzard is such a massive, well-oiled machine, that shit will not happen overnight. If ABK is the undoing of Microsoft, we're going to find out about that like 15 plus years from now. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in the next 5 years, probably not the next 10. And there's every chance that that won't happen. There's every chance that ABK will actually just get better or run just as efficiently as they always have. I think Microsoft is perfectly fine. I don't think that they have to worry about the future. And I think that's why they have this newfound kind of like confidence where they're just like, yeah, we'll do whatever we want because we can afford to do it. And Activision seems like a great moneymaker. We're good. We're good. Like, I guess what I'm saying is Microsoft's fail-safe, we could go third-party publisher. That's their fail-safe. And that's a hell of a fail-safe. That might be similar to Nintendo's fail-safe, where if Nintendo really did screw up with the Wii U so bad they had no choice but to go third-party publisher, that's a good fail-safe to have. They would have been fine. Like, as a company, as a business, they would have been fine. As a platform holder, they're finished. But in terms of making the money, they would have been fine. But obviously, a platform holder doesn't want to relinquish their platform unless they have to, or unless it really just makes sense to do so. So I'm going on and on and on here, and I know, but right now, PlayStation, out of the three main platform holders here and console manufacturers, PlayStation is in the most uncertain spot. And it's not a bad spot, I don't think. You know, saying it's uncertain doesn't make it bad. It just means that there is a risk involved here. And that risk is as simple as, like I said, Concord comes out next year, it doesn't succeed. Okay, that's a studio you just bought, invested a lot of money into, and they are producing no results. So what next? Well, next up we have Wolverine. Okay, what if? I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is a total doom and gloom scenario, and I would be very depressed. But let's just say Wolverine turns out to be Wokerine. And it's like they just fuck it up, man. And people are like, what the hell did you guys do? And the game sales suffer. And it turns out that, Wolverine isn't necessarily a flop. It's still making some money, but holy shit, it's nowhere near what we expected. What now? Well, now there's a hell of a lot more pressure on the next game in line. What's the next game in line? Well, I don't know. We'll find out. But if the next game in line doesn't pick up the slack, well, now now we're on a slippery slope. I don't know, man. I could go on. I know Wokerine, man. That shit gets me every time too. Wokerine. All right. Perfect Image, you're saying, I don't know if you knew the Portal was a patent, new CEO focused on this. So I did talk about that Perfect Image, how there was a patent discovered from 2017. It was literally the PlayStation Portal. Sony was working on the idea and the concept of the PlayStation Portal it's actually, the patent was from 2015. So nearly a decade old at this point. That's crazy to think. Tells me, I mean, you got to wonder what else they may have patented over the years that may come to fruition. All right, we got all right, I'm definitely behind here, so let me pick up the pace. Planet Schlorpian, he says Sony is a hardware company, whereas Microsoft is a software company. By the way, Nintendo didn't fail 2 consecutive generations in a row, whereas Microsoft has. That's true. Yeah, if the Switch didn't succeed for Nintendo, they very likely would have had no choice but to consider going third party, and that would have been an interesting turn of events. But the Switch was a mega hit, and yeah, Microsoft, as of right now, there's no indication that Microsoft is going to find that type of success in the hardware space with the Xbox brand anytime soon. If they could, but I don't know. I think that would require either them saying with it, like something they could do next generation if they really wanted is, okay, not only are these games going to be exclusive to the Xbox platform, but some of these games are actually going to be exclusive to the actual Xbox console. If they did that, it would counter what they've been saying, but it would produce a lot more sales, I think, if these games are good, and that would suddenly produce way more, competition in the console space to Sony and Nintendo. But I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, that is true, Planet Schlorpian. And something I think we always have to keep in mind. Ice Rezo, you're saying the console gaming. You're saying console gaming is small in the landscape of gaming. Riot is a multi-billion-dollar company, and none of their popular games are on console. That's true as well. And that is something that we do have to consider. Like, I sit here and I talk to you guys about how, man, Sony doesn't seem like they're on stable ground right now. Like, their feet are not firmly planted on the ground. They seem like they're in this kind of awkward position, maybe a little bit off balance. And I think this is why. I think it's because when Sony says we don't want to get left behind, I think that obviously doesn't refer to the console space. Sony's not being left behind in the console space. They're dominant in the console space. It refers to the gaming landscape as a whole. And when you hear Sony say that, it confirms to you that Sony believes the gaming landscape is shifting. And because of that, you have to ask, well, how far does that extend? Like, if Sony believes the gaming landscape is shifting, do they believe it's beginning to shift away from console? Do they believe that they might have to shift away from console sooner rather than later? Sony doesn't really elaborate on this. Like, I don't know if anybody has realized that, but Sony does not make it clear where they see the future of gaming going, except for one thing, and that is we want to have some live service games, and we believe in that. But that doesn't really, that's only like one area that they're willing to talk about clearly. They're very much, they're very wishy-washy on the cloud and mobile. Like, they talk about, like, yeah, we're doing it, but we're not going to tell you how much we're doing and what it really means to us right now. And I guess that's kind of expected to a degree. If you just keep people guessing, then you can never say the wrong thing necessarily, right? Like, if you don't ever answer the question directly, it can just be left up to interpretation. But yeah, that's something I definitely need to keep in mind as well when we have these conversations, Ice. We also have Taydot. He says the 10-year deal would include all ABK games. I don't think so. As far as I'm aware, and when I was covering this, the 10-year ABK deal that Sony signed is just for Call of Duty and Call of Duty alone. And that means that any other title that is produced by Activision Blizzard, Microsoft can do what they want with it. So if they want to keep it off of PlayStation, they can. But again, like, dude, I think it's like if we get another Crash Bandicoot game, you gotta admit Microsoft would be out of their minds to not release that on PlayStation, just for the sheer fact that, dude, you're gonna kill sales. Like, you're gonna kill sales. And I'm not saying Microsoft really cares about that, but it's like you're just leaving money on the table for literally no reason. Because no one's gonna, and like, I don't know how many people are gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna go to Game Pass now and stop playing my PlayStation 5 for this new Crash game. I mean, sure, maybe some people will, But I would argue that most PlayStation players would probably be like, what the fuck? Screw you. I'm staying here. And that's why I just think, like, wouldn't it just be literally easier for Microsoft to just say, we'll just take your money. Don't worry. Like, don't get up. We'll just take your money. That's what I don't get. Like, to me, that's the wildest shit to think about right now. Is it's just like Microsoft has the opportunity to just take everyone's money. And I feel like in terms of just sheer business, like what sounds like the most logical thing to do for the bottom line? It's like, why just take this group and their money when you can take everybody's money? That, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I guess somebody might ask that same question. Why doesn't Sony do that same thing? It's like, well, I guess it all is about ecosystems at the end of the day. I guess that is. I guess there is some kind of power in an ecosystem that it can't just be based upon taking as many people's money as you can. But we'll see. It'll be really funny to see what Microsoft does with Crash Bandicoot. Supremacy 101, you're saying one of the documents pointed at how Microsoft wants to, quote, marginalize Sony. Now ask yourself, does that sound like the makings of a great partnership? It's not a question of if they should buy a pub, they have to. That's true. And here's the thing about those documents, though, because I've been hung up on those documents that have leaked in those emails for a while, too. And something that people were pointing out is that, man, Microsoft has a real big focus on Sony in these documents. Like, they really, you could tell, and I think this stems from Phil Spencer. See, Phil has always kind of had this, at least he's always acted as if he's not really bothered by Sony. And like, you know, like he doesn't want to win and be number one. It's like, I've never believed that shit for a second. I'm like, dude, you were there. You were the head of Xbox publishing for the Xbox One, and you watched. Like, you were there to see how Sony like fucking ended your brand, dude. Well, not ended it, but Don Matrick ended it, and Sony just basically shoveled the dirt on the coffin. You know? I think that's just a human thing. Like, of course he wanted to fucking get back at Sony. Who wouldn't? Every single person there at Microsoft probably wanted to fucking destroy Sony because it's like, dude, look at what's happening. You know? The worst is happening. So I think Phil, he tried to play it cool and he did, but I think it was always kind of obvious, at least to me, that like this dude wants to make the comeback and he'll do anything that he can. Like, again, Phil was the one who said, we need to get Rise of the Tomb Raider exclusive. Like, Phil was desperate. He's like, I will play Sony's game if that's what I got to do. And then I think even when Phil bought Bethesda, like when he talked and they got, I think he still was in that mentality of like, yeah, like we're finally going to get back at them. But I think it really took, and we could be wrong, something that was very clear with these emails is, dude, Phil and the Xbox brand were operating like so independently from Microsoft as a whole. Like, dude, the CEO of Microsoft has no fucking idea what's going on over there. And he still might not. I'm sure he's paying a lot more attention now that they just spent $68 billion. But it was so clear in these emails that, dude, these higher ups don't, especially the CEO, they do not know what the hell is going on over there. And I think that is changing. And I think that's obvious. I think it's obvious it's going to change even more the more investment that Microsoft as a whole makes in the Xbox, that now these higher up Microsoft executives that would normally wouldn't give a single shit about what's going on over there at Xbox are now going to be asking more questions and really wanting to be more involved and hands-on directly. And I think that's, like, when I look at those emails from 2019, you know, Matt Booty says we can spend Sony out of business. Yeah, that you're talking about a man who just probably found out Pandora's box is opened for your brand. What's that? I would think the same. That would be my first initial thought as well. Like, holy shit, we could just fucking end them. But then you take that mentality to the CEO of Microsoft, and he's gonna say, what do you mean end them? We're not gonna end them. Like we're gonna how much money can we make from them? Like how can we leverage them to benefit us? That's the difference between the mentality of a CEO and, somebody who's in charge of publishing. Again, I'm not even faulting Matt Booty at this point, or Phil Spencer, because it's like, dude, you have been conditioned for like, you're preceding generations of conditioning of you gotta fucking fight for that market share aggressively. So you can't really blame these individuals for when this big shift occurred where they're like, wait, so we don't have to care about console sales anymore? We don't have to. I'm just saying that I wouldn't be so trusting of Microsoft either, because they could, I mean, it very well could be wolves in sheep's clothing, of course. But at the same time, it's just like, I want to hear more from Satya Nadella, is what I'm saying. I want to hear more of what he has to say about how he views the future of Xbox, because I think at the end of the day, like, well, it's not that I think. At the end of the day, everything Phil and company do are going to have to be in alignment with his vision of what this brand is going to do for this company. And all I'm saying is, again, we could look back at those emails. Oh, we'll spend Sony out of business. We want to marginalize them. We want to shrink. We want to take it to them. That's basically what those emails said. We want to fuck Sony's ass up. That's what we want to do, because that's what they did to us. And now we have the money to do it. Now I'm hearing Microsoft CEO say, yeah, we're taking more of, we're becoming more of a publisher, and we're focused more on the publishing side and acquisitions. I mean, that right there is just like, it almost completely overrides anything in those emails, because it's like, well, that was said to investors, So yeah, it's not like as secretive as an email, but it's pretty fucking telling. So I just don't know that I'm fully convinced at this moment in time, and we'll find out. Sony, that's the thing. Sony, I don't think they can take the risk. I don't think Sony can sit back and say, "Oh, I'm sure Microsoft will be friends with us in no time." Like, no, you probably still want to be very wary and concerned and skeptical about what they're trying to do, because they very well could be actually trying to end you aggressively, and just trying to continue to play it off as like, "Oh no, we're the nice guys." That could be exactly what they're doing. But you're saying Microsoft didn't become a $2 trillion company by being a nice guy. Microsoft is not Sony's friend. They said they want to spend Sony out of business. You're right. They didn't become a $2 trillion company by being the nice guy, but they did have to play nice to become a $2 trillion company. That is something we also have to recognize, is that Microsoft did not get to be where they are without learning to fucking play ball, even in at times when they really didn't want to, where it's like, man, we really didn't want to have to do this, but we have to. We have to. And that is, I think, just something that's also important to understand. And yeah, that's true as well. Microsoft didn't earn that $2 trillion through Xbox, but define play nice. To me, I guess playing nice would entail maybe a situation like that, where it's like, yeah, we can spend you out of business. But then it's like, yeah, but they're our biggest moneymaker for Call of Duty, and we just spent $68 billion on Call of Duty, and we kind of need them. It's like we kind of need to treat them well, because, well, not well, but like, we need to be able to just play nice with them, because they're making a lot of our money. You see what I'm saying? Like that's what I mean, where it's like, if Microsoft had it their way, if we removed all of the complexities, and this exact same logic applies to Sony, they would be able to buy Call of Duty, Activision Blizzard, and say, this is ours, and we will do what we want with it, and that's it. And we're going to Make a single console where this is the only console or Game Pass. This is the only place you can get Call of Duty. So please come to us and give us your money. But that's the thing, is they couldn't do that, because if they tried to do that, the regulators would have said, "What the fuck are you doing? No way." And that's where it's like, if they want to reach these, if Microsoft wants to reach the highest peak in gaming, they have no choice. And this applies to them, Sony, and everybody in between. You have no choice but to learn to play nice with everyone, because you will not reach the highest point in this industry if you're not playing nice with everyone. You can reach a high point, but even Sony, right? Like even Sony has reached this high point in console sales by learning to play nice with third-party publishers, by learning to play nice with partners they want to strike exclusivity deals with. It's just it's a necessary thing, I think, in any industry. If you want to be the most ubiquitous, the most universal, you got to learn how to make a lot of friends and have few enemies, and just make it so that the enemies you do have are probably going to be those exact same people that are like, "Yo, I want to be where you are." And we got Exley 3000. Exley 3000 says, "Hey, you thought the membership train came to a stop? Not quite. Not quite." Exley 3000 comes in and drops 5 more membership gifts for this community. He is keeping it going today. I want to see some W's in the chat. Exley brings us up to 81 members. You guys have absolutely crushed it today, and you're continuing to crush it. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for all of the continued support. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for sitting here listening to me go on and on and on. Because I swear, man, I don't know how I talk this much, but I do, and it amazes me sometimes even. So thank you guys so much, seriously, for all the support. Exley, amazing stuff, man. By the way, guys, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button for me. We're at 326 likes. Let's see if we can get to 350. That'd be amazing if we could do that. Really helps with the YouTube algorithm, and it lets me know you guys. Lets me know you guys enjoy the content. You've never seen anyone cheerlead for corporate hate? That's funny, dude. MBG, you really like to rant. I don't know if these would be considered like rants necessarily, but I have so much to say on this topic. Like, as you can tell, I'm having trouble like stopping talking about it, because it really is. It is the biggest difference maker in the future of, well, let's face it, like, I care about PlayStation more than Xbox, more than Nintendo. The discussion we're having right now is the biggest difference maker in what happens to PlayStation in the future. It is. There's just no way around it. That's why I have no choice but to talk about Microsoft in this way, because we are dealing with a company, a corporation that said in an email we could spend them out of business, and then a couple years later, after doing the spending, says we're taking more of a publishing route now. Like, you can see how, like, if I was Sony, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, what is their angle here? Exactly. What do we do to, what do we do? Because, like, again, Supremacy, you're saying they have to buy a publisher. They have to buy a publisher. And I'm sorry, I should read your second super chat here. You're saying, and that fear of critical failure is why they haven't and won't be able to create and sustain in a live service game, much less several. Buying isn't cheap either, but it's the most logical move in their case. And see, that's what makes this so fascinating, is that you are saying, and you are not the only one, they have to buy a publisher. They have to do it, man. Like, they don't, it's the most logical thing. Do you know how many people inside of Sony right now are probably advocating for that exact same thing? But there are, I would say just as many, but certainly people advocating against it, saying no, like, that is not the way. Like, it's too risky. There is a tug of war, I firmly believe, happening inside of Sony right now. And this tug of war has to do with that exact thing. Like, do we rely on our own studios? Do we rely on our push for live service and hope that works? Or do we bite the bullet, try to aggressively pursue a publisher, and I'm sure a third option would be, do we see if we can just if Microsoft will be willing to play nice with us, play ball with us, like what do we do? It's a tug of war, man. You're saying if Sony doesn't do it, Microsoft will. Well, that's another. See, here's another thing I want to bring up, and I think this is critical to this conversation. Question: Would if the difference between Microsoft acquiring a third publisher, like a let's say a sizable publisher, I don't know who could Microsoft acquire next, like Sega, maybe. I think there was talk that they wanted maybe to go after Sega or I don't know. You guys can just throw out publisher names, but Ubisoft maybe. Although I think Ubisoft's out of the equation now because of that deal they made. Like let's say like WB. Let's say WB. WB seems like if the difference between Microsoft being able to secure a third major publisher is, but you have an ecosystem and you release games exclusively in that ecosystem. And the only way you will be able to get this past regulators is you have to commit permanently, or, I guess it would have to be permanent. You have to go third party. That's the only thing you can do. And then you will be allowed to get this third major publisher. To me, that's the question right now. Because when Satya says we are focused more on a publishing side and an acquisition side, they are like, he just straight up says we're going to try to acquire more. Obviously, you have to imagine that those acquisitions are going to they're going to try for more publishers. I don't believe Microsoft could get another publisher over the line. I don't think they would be able to get another publisher over the line, especially a big one like WB or again, I don't think Ubisoft could happen, but like Sega or something. I don't think they could get it over the line if they weren't willing to go third party. I think they would have to do that. And then at that point, it would be clear that, well, now they're just like EA, right? And EA exists. EA is like, they're just like Take-Two. They're just like EA. They're massive monolithic publishers with immense power in this industry, but they don't own. They are like they're everywhere. There's no like, hey, if you want to play GTA 6, you got to play it through our sub service or our ecosystem. Same thing with EA and the sports games. This is why I think they are going to go third party, because it's just like, if you want to keep acquiring, I just don't think you can continue to make exclusive games, because that will. I want to again highlight what was the biggest thorn in Microsoft's side when trying to push Activision Blizzard over the line. What was their biggest thorn? What dragged that shit slowly and painfully? The talk about exclusivity. That was it. That is what caused this thing to be a fucking nightmare for everybody for 2 years. You're saying that, yeah, it was the CMA, but again, man, like Microsoft tried to get ahead of it. They even tried to, where they're like, hey, here's a 3-year deal, right? But then it was like, okay, well, Sony's giving us a hard time. We need to do a 10-year deal. But then it really just kind of escalated to something greater, where, and yeah, with the CMA, it was about cloud, but it still came down to exclusivity, even in the cloud space, which is kind of weird to think about, but it came down to exclusivity and power in the cloud space. So I think, yeah, man, I think the only way Microsoft achieves their goals is they have to give up. Like, if they want to keep acquiring, they have to give up the notion of withholding games from different platforms. Because if Google comes in and Google says, we want to buy EA, well, Google's about to become one of the most powerful juggernauts in the gaming industry. Just like that. They bought EA. And you already know. See, people wouldn't really care that much. I mean, they would care, but most people would just be like, okay. Because what changes for you? Probably nothing. Yeah, Google just rakes in that money now and manages them and owns them. But you suddenly, if you're on PlayStation or Xbox, you have to worry about not being able to play Madden now? No, you don't. So this is where I'm talking about, like, if you're talking about being an absolute juggernaut in this industry, I mean, at the peak of it, you can't really care about exclusivity and withholding your content. Google knows nothing about gaming. Even more reason why they would probably buy EA. Yeah, Tencent is moving in, man. Tencent is probably going to be... I mean, they were listed as one of the major... And you know what? It extends further, dude. Like, really quick, Supremacy, going back to your super chats, you're saying you think Sony does have to buy a publisher. Well, let me ask you this question. If Sony does buy a publisher, you think that they approach that acquisition? You're talking about like billions and billions of dollars. Like, let's say everybody wants Sony to buy Ubisoft, apparently. Let's say Ubisoft. How much is Ubisoft? $4 billion? Like, they'll probably pay like $5 billion or something for them. A large amount of money. Like, more than they paid for Bungie. More than they paid for Bungie. If you think if Sony does that, they're going to go into that with the approach of, okay, and how can we leverage this with exclusivity? I think they would. I don't think they would be able to. I don't think they would. I think the only way Sony makes a move like that work for them is they have to keep it as ubiquitous as possible. They have to keep it on everything. Because it's just, I don't know how they would be able to make that work for them. Probably more now with the cloud contract. I mean, we were pretty convinced that Sony only bought Bungie because Bungie told them our games can't be exclusive. Now we're hearing Bungie say we would have been not out of business. Like, I don't want to say they would have shut down, but we would have been in real trouble if it wasn't for Sony acquiring us. Suddenly, that makes me think, okay, so maybe that wasn't a demand. Maybe Sony said, we want to put your games everywhere. They're already on Xbox. We're not going to take that away. That's what Microsoft did, right? Microsoft's made it pretty clear that if they make a future live service game, it'll probably release on PlayStation. So it just makes me question, like, maybe Sony wasn't the one, or Bungie wasn't the one to say, hey, we need to release on Xbox. It may have been Sony saying, like, yeah, we need this shit to work and make as much money as possible. So you're already established on Xbox. Go ahead. And it makes me wonder if Sony were to acquire a publisher, if they would just, yeah, go ahead, guys. You're already on Xbox. It's not a big deal. Because that's the thing. Does Sony want to be a third-party publisher? Like, does Sony want to be in that position where it's about publishing and acquisition? I don't know. Right now, it doesn't seem that way necessarily. But that's where Microsoft is, and that's where they're going, even quicker now with ABK. So that's why I always said, like, I don't know that the right move for Sony is to chase Microsoft, because if Microsoft's end game is to be a monolithic third-party publisher, that would end PlayStation as we know it, because PlayStation is the furthest thing from being a monolithic third-party publisher. They could be a big publisher if they wanted to, but they would literally have to fold their entire, like, 4 generations worth, now 5, of trying to build an ecosystem, mainly driven around the console. So you got it's really these super chats that are keeping me going here, which isn't a bad thing. That meme guy, member for 6 months, says Sony could buy Konami and then Sony would have a live service called Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and it's on every platform, not to mention the TCG and tournaments. I never heard of these, but yeah, I honestly forget that Konami owns Yu-Gi-Oh! That would be a really interesting move for Sony to make. I think them trying to get closer to Konami. I don't know, man. We don't know what Konami internally looks like anymore. We have to see the results. I mean, Delta is a from the ground, not from the ground up, visually from the ground up remake. Silent Hill 2 remake is not even being done by Konami. It's being done by Bloober Team. So I don't know, man. Again, I feel like Sony making a move for Konami is more for IP rather than talent because we don't know if Konami has any more development talent left. I mean, you mentioned in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. No offense to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans, but holy shit, that would be the most underwhelming and unexciting. Like, if that's why Sony acquired Konami, it's like it was for Yu-Gi-Oh! I'd be like, what the? Well, man, that means nothing to me. I mean, that means less than nothing to me. So, let's see here. So that meme guy, I appreciate that. We have Ice Rezo again, and he says shareholders are not focused on Xbox. Xbox is 6% of Microsoft's revenue. ABK doesn't report to a board. Investors care about AI and cloud for Microsoft. That's true. Yeah, I mean, there's no denying that. I mean, but here's the thing, though, right? Like, surely Microsoft shareholders are paying much more attention to Xbox now that they just acquired Activision Blizzard, right? I mean, Microsoft was the one that was like, here's how much more money we're going to make in the next fiscal year because of this. Like, surely that caught the attention of shareholders. And so, I don't know. We'll see, man. I just want it to be known that this entire conversation is just purely speculation about the potential future of Microsoft, of Sony, of the landscape in general. And I wouldn't be surprised if I'm so far off the mark. It's like, dude, you are in outer space right now. Like, none of this is even close to happening, and it's not going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't, because that's just how unpredictable things really are at this moment in time. We are at one of those rare moments in the gaming industry where any decision that is made now, because keep in mind, like, Sony and Microsoft basically they were like paused for the past 2 years with this ABK thing. It's like somebody hit the pause button. It was just, everything they did was just business as usual, like, just keep things flowing. But neither of them had like made any major, like, like ground shaking announcements or moves, because they couldn't. They were, especially Microsoft. Like, Microsoft was totally engaged with pushing this over the line. They couldn't make any announcements. And Sony was just as engaged in like trying to stop it and watching it from the sideline. That's why I'm saying we are at that rare moment where, like, any decision that, like, that's over. The pause button, we've hit the play button. And so going into next year, saying, what? I thought these were actual answers to our questions. They could be. That's the beauty of it. The play button has been hit now. It's not paused anymore. So both Sony and Microsoft now have the ability to make, announcements that will shake things up, that will rattle the cage, that will change potentially everything in a big way. And we haven't had something like that happen for PlayStation in a long time. And the last time we had that happen with Microsoft was when they announced they were going to acquire ABK. I don't know if everybody like realizes quite just how long things have been paused for, but it's over now. And the Game Awards, I don't know. We'll see what the Game Awards has in store for us announcement wise, because there's going to be a lot of viewership at the Game Awards. And both Sony and Microsoft have a huge opportunity to, I don't say make an industry shattering announcement, certainly not like that, but to kind of set the stage, as it were, to get people prepared for what we might begin to see going into 2024. Or it could be extremely underwhelming and boring and, suck, but hopefully that's not the case. And then we have Supremacy 101 again. He says, the only publisher that can level the playing field like a mushroom cloud for Sony is Take-Two. It's the riskiest and the most lucrative. Sony needs a safety net. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think that if Sony were to make a move like, but here's the thing about that. Take-Two would have to want to be sold. And that's the question, is does Take-Two want to be sold and owned? Is that something that they would want to actually, or are they totally fine being like, we don't need that? Like that, because the common theme between Activision Blizzard and Bethesda is Bethesda was having a struggle and they want it to be acquired. Like they needed, I'm not saying Bethesda was kind of at risk where if like you have the pressure's mounting and you don't really have a safety net per se. So what are you going to do if shit goes south and like hope we don't go under? When they got purchased, you say yes, Take-Two CEO and EA CEO both said they're open to being sold. Really? I feel like I heard about that from EA, but not Take-Two. Let me see. So I'm seeing articles pop up from 2022 on Take-Two being sold. This is from Tweaktown, first article. Take-Two CEO discusses possible acquisition by another company. This was October 11th, 2022. So a little over a year ago. Let me see if I can get to the quote here. Interestingly enough, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick gives a rather level-headed answer on a possible buyout. Not really. I don't worry about being acquired. We're a public company and all public companies are potentially available. And if someone shows up with a meaningful cash offer at a meaningful premium, every public company has to engage. We like being independent. We've created an enormous amount of value as an independent company. We're not at a scale where we are a major in this business. There aren't many of them. Depending on what happens, we're either the number 2 or number 3 developer and publisher worldwide. The Wrap CEO Sharon Waxman interviewer said, you could argue that also makes you a target because you feel a need for another large company. Zelnick responds by saying it makes sense for Take-Two to stay as it is because a big company, possibly the likes of Tencent, could disrupt the critical creative process that Take-Two's business is known for. And so I'll just read this last quote. He says, I think another good reason for us to be independent and creative companies that are creative but independent tend to do better at scale than divisions at big, massive companies. We've seen that over and over again. That's why there are conglomerate discounts. And so, yeah, I mean, unless there was another interview recently that's not popping up here for some reason. My read on this is they're not looking to be acquired. It seems like he's basically just saying that if they got like an offer they couldn't refuse, they would have to oblige because they're a publicly traded company. Like, yeah, like we would have to take that. And I think that's what's interesting because I think that's basically what happened with Activision. I think Microsoft saw that Activision was in they weren't in a chokehold, but it was clear that with all the allegations and negative press surrounding Bobby Kotick and Activision, it was not smooth sailing at the time. Now, not necessarily financially, but it wasn't very good. They didn't have a great public perception. I think Microsoft just kind of swooped in and said, like, let's give them an offer they can't refuse. You know, they're in a position where they're likely to just say, fuck it. Like, the shit is hitting the fan perception-wise and publicly facing for our company, this could have ramifications in the long run to our bottom line. We're getting an offer that is probably the best we'll ever get. Let's take it. This is our out, So again, Take-Two's not in that position where Take-Two right now is about to have likely their biggest growth in their history by far. Believe me when I tell you that they're unlikely to accept any offer from any company unless it's an absurd offer that almost doesn't make sense. Because I think you're right that that would level the playing field almost instantaneously, but that I think might be an angle that not enough people consider, where it's like Sony can't just buy a publisher, and neither can Microsoft. Like, you can't just buy. There has to be an agreement. I mean, you can talk about like hostile takeover, but that's not a smart idea. That would be stupid. So we'll see, man. If something goes cataclysmically wrong with GTA 6, like they made it woke, as everybody seems to think they're going to, and everybody's like, what the fuck is this shit? Then they'll probably be looking around like, somebody want to buy us? Please buy us now before it gets worse. That's the thing, man. What Sony's probably looking for right now, I hate to say it, is not failure, but struggle. And that's just how it is, like they're more likely to navigate closer to a company that is running into some rough waters that can, maybe it's not that bad. We can sort it out. We can fix it. Negotiations have to be a thing that they're willing to have. Grand Theft wokeness. I think that's where we'll end it, guys. Grand Theft wokeness. I mean, how do we proceed forward from here? I do have one last minor update for you guys before we move to the members lounge. I want to thank you guys though for entertaining this conversation and listening to me go on and on about this, because it's very nice of you guys to to be such great. I want to thank you guys for being a great audience, for being great viewers. It's very kind of you, because I know I can really go on and on sometimes, and this is definitely one of those times. But I do want to let you know I have one last short topic I'm going to cover, and then after that we're going to move to the members lounge. Okay. And I'm going to be doing something a little bit different in the members lounge. It'll be interesting to see how it goes, but I want to encourage everybody who's here right now that is a member, please stick around, because that stream is going to go live very shortly after this one ends. And we have 81 members today, so that's 81 people that can now join us as well. But the final topic I have for you guys here is just a small, very small little update on Silent Hill 2. Nothing of significance, but just something I thought I'd relay to you. This is being reported by PlayStation Lifestyle. Bloober Team's Silent Hill 2 remake was officially announced over a year ago, but we've barely had any updates or news since. There's no indication that the game hit development troubles at any point in time, but fans are clamoring for information and have taken to Twitter to quiz the developer about its lack of communication. Bloober Team says that Silent Hill 2's publisher, Konami, is the one in charge of communication. As a result, any updates or news has to come from them. For its part, the studio has relaxed concerns and reiterated that the game is neither in any trouble nor is it canceled. Any updates we've had about Silent Hill 2 Remake have come from various leaks. For instance, a Steam page update ended up revealing that the game will come supposedly with 12 trophies, but it's probably going to have more than that, though this may change. Pre-orders for the game have also unceremoniously started. See, that's the weirdest thing to me, is like you can just go pre-order Silent Hill 2 Remake right now. Like if I go over to Amazon, okay, heading over to Amazon, Silent Hill 2 Remake, it's right there. $70, 1,000 plus bought in the past month. And you can just pre-order it. I don't know what Konami's doing, but this is very awkward where they're like, they didn't put out a pre-order trailer. They didn't, I don't know. My guess is maybe they'll show up at the Game Awards. That means they would have had to have smoothed things over with Jeff Keighley. We know how Jeff Keighley feels about the game or about Konami. We know how Jeff feels about Konami. So I wouldn't be surprised if Konami's blacklisted from the Game Awards. But yeah, I just wanted to give you that small update. People are basically asking Bloober Team, what's going on? What's up with the game? And they're like, yo, we can't do anything. So we'll see. Maybe Sony has like a state of play plan for like December or January, some shit. Like a third party state of play. I don't know. But guys, this is where this episode of MBG Live is going to come to an end. I'm going to be putting out, again, the Members Lounge for you guys, for all of my members. That's going to go live in, I'd say, probably about 5 to 10 minutes after the stream ending. But before I go, I do want to, oh, really quick. You're saying, MBG, I've seen some people analyzing scenes in Spider-Man 2 and discovering plot holes, saying it's really funny. I wouldn't be surprised. I didn't think too hard about Spider-Man 2's plot. I didn't. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I moved on. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are a couple of, I don't know, are they major plot holes or minor? I guess that's really the difference there. But guys, I want to do my outro here. And the first thing I want to do is extend a massive thank you. Okay. You guys showed up in force today. Incredible support. Again, sitting at 81 members. That's 3 goals crushed. 3 goals, 25, 50, and 75. Absolutely amazing. I cannot thank you guys enough. We are fan funded here. This channel is fan funded. This content is fan funded. So to everybody today who either gifted a membership, became a member, or donated a super chat, because super chats are very important as well, just know that you guys are fan funding this, and without you, it simply wouldn't be possible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And to anybody who just watches the content, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching after the fact, have to thank you as well, because if it wasn't for the viewership, there would be no content. And yeah, I also want to make sure I give a big thank you to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps for all of the streams. If you see him in the comment section or just hanging out in the chat, make sure you give him a thank you, because he does a great job with that. But that's going to do it for this episode of MBG Live. Nearly 4 hours again. Insane. So I'm going to head over to the members stream. Keep an eye out on the dashboard or on the channel. It's going to go live in just a couple of minutes. So, all right, that does it. I will catch you over in the members stream for my members. But if you're not a member, everybody else, I will catch you in the next regular stream. So until then, take care, everyone.